Here we were in the early stages of a pandemic, something that none of us had ever experienced in our collective lifetime. I knew we'd be back on our feet at some point, but in the interim, I still wanted to speak to audiences, but particularly to assistant principals. Knowing that my social media platform was large and was closely associated with my work, on the first Saturday in May 2020, I launched the virtual AP Leadership Academy. The intent was 18 weeks only, but as many of you know, we are years in with no ending in sight. We are now the AP and New Principals Academy, as many of the assistant principals from the original virtual AP Leadership Academy became principals. If you're new to the platform, welcome. If you're a leadership veteran, this platform continues to be relevant for veterans in principal leadership, assistant principal leadership, and aspiring school leaders. With that said, it's time for today's session. And we are live. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and good morning. Welcome to week 323 consecutively of the AP and New Principals Academy. Let me see who we got checking in this morning. We got starting us off Marsha Poe, typically in San Diego, but she's in Lexington, South Carolina, and she's going to be joining us at the School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele on July 9 and 10 next week in Savannah, Georgia. We got Mona Obamolak in Orlando, Florida. Just came from there, as you probably know. Dr. Rachel Edowecki, the president, Maryland Association of Elementary School Principals, but did outstanding work at the ISTE ASCD conference as well. She's a regular fam member, and she'll be back with us, I think, either July or August. I think it's August, but she'll be with us. But she did one of them keynote addresses at the ISTE ASCD conference. So I'm proud of her. We're all proud of her. Good job. Among the other things you did, she's also recognized as top 20 educators to watch by ISTE ASCD. So she's just doing big things. So I just want to shout out my sister out here doing this work, and certainly my fam of the AP New Principals Academy. Let's go. We got Dr. Rella Hicks is in Augusta, Georgia. Dr. Ronald Pugh. I don't know if you got that doctorate yet or not, Ronald, but I call you doctor this morning. But I appreciate you, man. I just appreciate you. You know, you were there for me at the pre-conference session, and then you came to the breakout session. We're gonna talk a little something about that later. But yeah, just good to see you, my brother. Thank you. Chancellor Davis. And I might add Ronald Pugh, Principal Ronald Pugh out there in Cedar Hill, Texas. Chancellor Davis, Las Vegas, Nevada. I don't know what the temperature is out there, but we've been averaging 100 here in Jersey. You know, this Las Vegas weather. The car thermometer was saying 115, so like, I know, Chancellor, you probably said, oh, that's our norm, man. It ain't no big deal. Right? For us, it's like, damn, so yeah, a little different. Dr. Robert Snowden is in Fresno, California. She said, as always, Harambe. Good stuff. Grace Castaneda is in Kyle, Texas. She'll be the other way down, yeah. Kyle, Texas, but she'll be with us. It's in Savannah, July 9 and 10. Yeah. Principal Otis Kitchen II, Tampa, Florida. Where we at? Takesha High is in Virginia. Nadira Coley, Newark, New Jersey. We got Adrian Young, Newport News, Virginia. Where we at? Rodney Richardson in Hampton, Virginia. Lysandra Brackens, North Carolina. Mary Jane Long, Delaware. I'll be in Delaware soon. I think in 2 weeks. I think, yeah, 2 weeks I'll be there. Red Clay in Wilmington. We where we at? Mrs. Truesdale in Atlanta. Bobby Joe Stewart. Where we at? San Jose, California. AP Patrick Lawrence is in Connecticut. John Herricks is in Denton, Texas. Mrs. Yolanda McKinney. Mrs. Yolanda McKinney looked out for me the other day. I posted something which I ain't gonna share with y'all. She said, were you hacked?" I said, "No, I posted it, but I decided to take it down." Right? My wife said, "Take it down." All right, so I did. Elevating education for for L's, I think it says. Good morning. If I butchered that, I apologize to you. I'm going to shut it down, y'all. I got so much to talk about today. Vanessa Zeskind is in Connecticut. Miss Jones, EDS, is in Hampton, Virginia. Arlette Johnson, I see you. I hope you had a great year, Arlette. We gotta catch up at some point. Definitely. Dr. Garcia, Edu, appreciate you. Good morning. And let me Stacy Joy, I gotta recognize Stacy. She's here. Create and Educate. I see them. They're here. Dr. McKeever Jeter, I see you. Dr. Melissa Jones Chunu, I see you. David Bell, I see you. Sean Hurt, I see you. I see all of y'all. Hey, y'all, Dr. Tammy Taylor, I see you. And the last one I see, I'll just say my man, Joseph Haruna, is in Rwanda, Africa. We're going to stop it right there. I appreciate you bringing it. I gotta recognize. Wait, hang on, y'all. I said I was done, but I got to recognize this brother, man. We got Dr. A in the building, man. We got Dr. A, Dr. Anna L. Austin in the building, man. This dude is like blowing up like a bomb. Yo, Doc, I see you, man. I see what you're doing. Speaking, I see you. I see them videos, those reels. I see you, but I didn't see you at ISTE ASCD. And you know, probably because I left 2 days early, man. I just had to go home and sit on, like, right over here, the couch. I had to sit on my couch for the next several days. I'm still in those days until I go out tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm back on the road like until August. So, you know, but good job, Doc. I know I see you doing your thing. I see you. Right. Let's go, y'all. Let's get to it. Let me say formally now to everybody. Before I say formally, hit the share button for me, retweet, repost, text somebody, tag somebody, call somebody, let them know we here with the special edition today. So with that being said, good morning, greetings, welcome to week 323 of the AP and New Principals Academy. I should say consecutively 323 weeks. We haven't missed a week. Hey, y'all, let me start off the way I always do. And by the way, someone might be saying, that jersey's a little different. What you wearing? Well, it's the alternate jersey for, let me turn all the way, New York Black Yankees. I got number 25 on the back because Satchel Paige played there for a minute. Y'all, some of y'all didn't know that. You thought he was all Kansas City. Nah. He played for the New York Black Yankees for a minute. Right, and I'm just repping Satchel Paige with the New York mesh joint. You know, he didn't wear it. This is mesh, right? Short sleeve, all that stuff. But you know, the company that I get my stuff from, Ebbets Fields, they make these mesh short sleeve summer joints. So that's what I got on. Hey, y'all, let's go. Same two questions as every week. What were your wins last week? What were your wins? Right, you're off. It's summer. It's summer. Some of you are not in school at all. Others are in the school. But let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you can't have wins, right? And particularly as it relates to the work, because there could be things that you're just engaged in that are transferable to the work, right? So I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that you're winning, and don't get yourself bombarded with your deficiencies, your pressures, your demands, your failures, whatever it is, because I bet you when you add them all up, you're winning. But my other question, as always, what will you do next week to take your leadership to another level? Right? That's important. I'm always thinking about that as it relates to my work. What can I do next? Right? Because even though I talk about slowing down, you know, I've been very vocal with that lately. Not right now slowing down, but slowing down, you know, when I'm 67. I'm still 65, so I got a little time. Right. But I'm always thinking, all right, so when you do slow it down, what does that look like? Like when you turn that corner and you 67 and them Social Security checks are coming in, what's that going to look like? Right. So I'm always plotting, planning. I got a couple books up the sleeve, short sleeve. So up the sleeve, you know, and you know, we'll figure it out. But enough said there. Let's go. I got my announcements and my monologue. And let me tell you this before I get to my monologue. I'll say it way before. It's July 4th, y'all. I'm solo, right? I don't have to rush to get to a guest. Right. This is a first Saturday. For every first Saturday, I'm solo. I'm going to take my time. What Luther say? Luther said, I'm going to take my time singing these love songs. right? And that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna take my time singing these love songs. If everybody splits to go to a cookout or something, you know, whatever it is, I'm still gonna be here, man. I'm gonna get this whole 10-page agenda in, right? I just want it on video so that people can go back and reference it and use it and maybe bring it to a staff meeting, right? Whatever it is, because I got stuff on the dome, man, that I haven't talked about in a while. I've talked about a lot of this content, but it's been a few years, right? So in terms of the platform, right? So but let me get through the announcements first. First, I want to recognize a great educator, a great friend, who made his transition literally last Saturday, at the age of 58. His name was William. I think he was 58. His name is William Clay, but he's known as Flip, right? Flip Clay, Dr. William Flip Clay. No one saw that coming, I don't think, unless he was ill and people close to him knew, but I certainly did not know. So when my man, Dr. Chike Akua, reached out to me to ask me, was it true? Did I hear anything? I said, let me research it. And unfortunately it was. He made his transition. But Dr. William Flip Clay, good friend of mine. We go way back to when we were both on the come up as speakers. We were entrenched in education, but we wanted to be speakers, man. You know, so we met on the road, you know, just wherever somebody would take us in to give a speech, give a keynote, do a breakout, whatever. So we started winding up in a lot of the same places. You know, we were in the same circles, and we became very good friends. And we were both rising at the time. You know, I was still not getting paid too much, you know, to do this, but just trying to get that exposure and that name recognition. And same with him. He decided to stay in the school because he loves it so much. I loved it a lot too, but I had to chase this dream. So I've been out here for 15 years. So, but again, I just want to acknowledge my brother, William Flip Clay. But here's the irony, y'all. He was my scheduled guest one-on-one for August 22nd, right? So I'm like, man, why didn't I bring him on earlier? He's a counselor. So, you know, he wasn't on the radar the way that people who are in leadership are, but he's relevant. And you know, I've had counselors on, but he was coming on just me and him one-on-one, 2 hours, August 22nd. And now it won't happen, which is very unfortunate. He's not the only one who made a transition before they were scheduled to come on here. And those hurt because you wish you had them on. So, hey, Flip, man, we got you down here, right? And I see you when I get there. Let's go, y'all. Hit that share button, retweet, repost, tag somebody, text somebody, let them know we here. You know, it's 4th of July. You do the cookout later. Come on here. If you're cooking, just cook, but keep the headphones on, right? Hey, y'all, I just got to show you this real quick, man. I don't usually show y'all my awards. You know, let's get it so y'all can see it. There we go. Let me get out there. We can't do it. Here we go. It's the ASCD Impact Award 2026 presented to Principal Kafele. This is I didn't know about this, man. I didn't have reason to know. I never got one. But I learned that this award was like a big deal. Right, like they had different awardees at the program it's the ASCD conference, but then they had the impact, and that's like the pinnacle. And they had us come up for a panel discussion, you know. So it was really a big deal. I wasn't aware, but now I know. I said, wow, it's a big deal. It's the Impact Award. Had my picture on the wall and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you saw the post. But shout out to the ASCD for seeing it not robbery to give the young man from East Orange, New Jersey, that lives in Jersey City, the Impact Award. Man, I will keep trying to please God with the work that I do, which includes my agenda for today. Right. Next, welcome to the first timers. But if this is in fact your first time, what it means is that you've missed 322 sessions. But don't fret. Go to the AP and New Principals Academy YouTube channel, and you can binge watch them all. Again, AP New Principals Academy YouTube channel, and all 322 plus today's 323 are there. You can watch them all. That's 6 years worth of videos, literally every day since the first Saturday in May, every Saturday, the first Saturday in May 2020 during the pandemic. I should also say about ASCD ISTE, I missed it, ISTE ASCD as they're calling it. In fact, they're calling it ISTE now. The pre-conference. What a great time. We had 5 hours of talking leadership, right, on various genres of leadership. The breakout session, I'm not going to get into it because of time, but those, how's it go? If you know, you know, right? So if you were there, shout out to you. I might say love you, right? If you know, you know. If you don't know, that's for another time when I can break it down, because it was definitely a special spiritual time, right? But I don't have time to get into it because I got 10 pages of notes, right? Actually 9 pages, no, 8 pages, 8 pages of notes, right? 8 pages of notes. So we'll say that for another time. It'll always be relevant, so I'll save it for another time. Again, for the I think this will be the 4th week I've announced this now. We're going to go to Zoom every first Saturday starting in September for the 2nd hour. So the first hour, that'll be yours truly solo. But for the 2nd hour, we're going to go to Zoom so that we can talk it through, not just listen to me talking on a StreamYard call, right? But we go to Zoom. How do you get the link? Go to my AP New Principals Academy Facebook page. Now, let me tell you where not to go, because this is where so many people keep going. Please do not go to my Principal Kafele Facebook page. Go to my AP New Principals Academy Facebook page. Click the message tab. Inbox me. Just one thing. I'm in or I'm down, right? I'm in or I'm down. And then type in your email address, your personal email, not your professional, because I may not be able to get through. I'll send you the link late August, right? Those of you not on Facebook, I noticed that, then hit me up on whatever platform you're on. If you're on Twitter, hit me up there. If you're on LinkedIn, hit me up there, but not as a post. Go to the inbox. And keep in mind, I'm going to say this every Saturday until we get to September. This link is not to be shared unless it's somebody that you hold dear, that you feel can benefit, but it's not, please don't post it. Like, my friends, you got to get with Principal Kafele now, because one of your friends might be a troll of mine, and I don't want them in there, right? So just don't post the link when I give it to you. I appreciate that. All right. The 2 books that coincide with this platform, The Assistant Principal 50 and What is My Value Instructionally to the Teachers I Supervise. I consider these the 2 most important books I've written. I might be lying. But the 2 that coincide with this platform, they may not be the 2 most important, because that equity book is real important. The one that likes practically banned in most of America, right? But it's still important. But What is My Value Instructionally to the Teachers I Supervise and The Assistant Principal 50. If you don't have your copy, just go to Amazon or ascd.org and get your copy right now, right? Get your copy. And then while you're there, you may as well get the other books I've written. I've written 14 altogether, for those of you who may be new to me, right? The School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele, July 9 and 10. That's next week, man. I'm excited. In Savannah, Georgia. You still got time to register. You get a free copy of this when you arrive. It's literally at the hotel now waiting for me, right, in Savannah, Georgia. So you still got time to register. Go to principalkafele.com, scroll down, and you'll see it. Click the link, and I'll see you in Savannah, July 9 and 10, from 9 to 4. We're talking leadership. We're talking instructional leadership, but we're going to be very specific in terms of what we're talking. I will not be someone who wrote me the other day. I'm not discussing things I discussed in the past. I never do. All new content, right? So join us. And then lastly, if you want to join me publicly, yeah, that keeps happening. If you want to, just hit that off button again. If you want to join me publicly, July 14th, National Association of Elementary School Principals Conference, NAESP. I'll be in Orlando July 14. I'll be doing 2 sessions, right? A featured session and a regular breakout session. If you like, join me there. Go to naesp.org. They'll be there from the 13th through the 15th. And you can also join me at SREB, Southern Regional Educational Board, in Nashville, July 15. They'll be there from the 13th through the 16th or 17th, but I'll be there the 15th in Nashville, sreb.org. Love to see you at either one. All right, y'all, I'm ready. Do me a favor before I jump into it. Hit the share button, retweet button, repost button, tag somebody, text somebody, call somebody, holler at somebody. Hit up them Facebook groups, some leadership groups. Let them know we're here, we're live. Hit them like buttons, y'all, especially on YouTube. Hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button. Even if you dislike it, like it anyway. Maybe you'll get some other people that dislike it to join you, right? So just hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button. All right, y'all. I'm today's a special edition. I got a monologue, which I'm gonna take my time with, and I got my regular session. This is not the leadership session, but here's where it relates to what we do. This is not the topic, but my content today should be in every classroom in America. I don't care what the race, ethnicity, culture, anything. I don't care who you are, what you are. The content should be in every classroom in America. I would dare say in the world, but I'll keep it confined to North America, United States, right? It should be there. It's just no way around it. And here's the thing. Like I'm in the monologue without stating the title now. So like I'm here now, y'all. I'm in it. So 4th of July. It's a special day for America every year. It's a special day for me, but not the traditional stars and stripes, red, white, and blue. You know, that's not what it is for me. Typically, today was different because it's part of my monologue. But let me tell you what I've been doing for the past many years. Every July 4th, I go outside. It's typically sunny out, right, in the morning, and then it rains in the afternoon, right? So it's typically sunny out. I go and sit out on my stoop, and I read from this book I want to show you. This is a 5-volume set. This is volume 2, The Life and Writings of Frederick Douglass. It says 4 volumes, but they actually added a 5th volume, pre-Civil War decade, right? Pre-Civil War decade. So I go outside and I read from this. I'm going to tell you what I read in a little while, right? Not yet. But I read from this book. This is a 5-volume set. Look how thick it is. And they're all this thick. It's all Frederick Douglass writings and speeches. So I treasure this. But this particular volume is my go-to, which I'll tell you why in a little while. So I go outside every July 4th. Like I start my day. I go outside, man, and I just read. I read Frederick Douglass. But the speech he gave, which has since been retitled, What to the Slave, is Your 4th of July. That's what I read, right? So I just sit there and I read as much of it as I can read in the time I have, because it's a very lengthy speech. And quite frankly, with some of Frederick Douglass' vocabulary, you need a thesaurus nearby, right? He was that heavy for someone who was enslaved, right? So that's my ritual. But then I'm thinking about school, and I'm thinking about children and teachers and leaders at the building level and the central office level, because at the end of the day, I'm an educator. That's what I am. I bleed it. It's not like I'm educator when I'm doing the work. I bleed education. They could put that on my grave when I transition. He was an educator. That's all. He was an educator. Maybe they'll say he was a great educator. And I say that without a smile, right? I mean that, right? So maybe that's what will be written. But I'm thinking education. So I'm saying, man, what I just read for the umpteenth time needs to be in schools, right? Needs to be in classrooms. How are we educating children? And I didn't say educating Black children. I can say Black children, but how are we educating children and they don't know the specificity of Frederick Douglass, to use him as an example, right? So I go out there and I just, on the one hand read, but on the other hand, I'm reflecting. Now, in full disclosure, because I don't want to be hypocritical on here either. That was how I educated children. And if I got any past students that are on here right now, because some weeks I got former students that check in. If I got any former students on here right now, you can go ahead and drop dime and let them know that's how I taught. I'm not teaching my 5th graders, and I'm not teaching you Frederick Douglass. I'm not teaching my 5th graders when I was in East Orange, New Jersey, East Orange School District, and I'm not teaching you the truth of July 4th as it relates to Black people, the enslaved in this country. I'm not doing that. I'm teaching you that. Is there pressure on me? Yes, even in a Black district like East Orange. I can't speak for it now, so I don't want folks calling the current superintendent, oh man, Kafele going in. No. I'm talking about when I was there. There's certain pressure to not cover this and not cover that, and teachers spying on you, trying to see what you're doing, and categorizing you as racist and all that stuff. I mean, it comes with it, but that ain't new to being Black. That's what it's always been. So that stuff just rolls off my shoulder, man. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to make sure these kids these scholars are properly educated. Right? That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm teaching the young people Frederick Douglass. Right? I'm teaching the young people the history of Black people in America. We ain't doing a bunch of biographies and all that. We putting the biographies in the context of the times. That's a different kind of teaching. It's easy to give them worksheets. Here's the bio of Ida B. Wells. Here's the bio of Rosa Parks. Here's the bio of W.E.B. Du Bois. Here's the bio of Frederick. No. I use them. But I want them to understand, if I'm giving you a bio of Booker T. Washington, for example, if I'm giving you a bio of Sojourner Truth, if I'm giving you a bio of Harriet Tubman, I want to give you the broader context upon which created their bio. I hope you see the difference, because just giving a bio doesn't really make the youngster aware of the era. And that mattered to me. So that's who I was. Curriculum didn't support it. Hey, let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you something. I'm taking my time singing these love songs. I feel myself talking fast. I'm getting ready to slow down, y'all. If y'all can't hang with me, that's okay. It'll be on video. I felt like I was rushing. Bring it down, baby. I'm bringing it down. Listen, when I was a 5th grade teacher, they had a director of social studies in East Orange. Her name was Dr. Loretta Osakwe. Dr. Loretta Osakwe. She knew that I was a conscious educator. She knew what I was doing in that classroom. I forget how we met. I probably reached out to her when I saw that she was social studies, and I saw her name and I checked out her bio. I said, that's somebody I need to know. Right? Maybe my superintendent who was feeling me, Dr. John Howard Jr., maybe he hooked me up with her. I just don't remember. Right? But I celebrate that man to the end of my time. Right? We can do a different session and talk about him. Right? But Dr. Loretta Osakwe comes to me. I'm a 5th grade teacher. I ain't got no status. I had not won Teacher of the Year yet. She said, how you feel about writing a K-12 curriculum for the district on African American studies? So y'all ain't know that. Those of you who are regulars, you didn't know that part. Right? She said, she called me, baby. She said, how would you like to write a curriculum, kindergarten to 12th grade, on African American studies? I said, where do I sign? She said, we can't pay you but a little small stipend. I said, you ain't got to pay me nothing to do this. They gave me a little small stipend. I don't remember how much it was. It ain't relevant. I reported to her office every morning. And I spent the whole day, that whole summer, writing this K-12 curriculum called African American History. Let me tell you something, y'all. I don't mind saying this because this was years ago. I wouldn't say it now because I don't want to be disrespectful to the current administration. But I'll say it's years ago. I wrote that curriculum. It now gave me license to go in, because let me tell you what the book list was. Hear me, somebody. The book list: Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, right? Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Chancellor Williams, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, right? Dr. John G. Jackson, Dr. Malefi Asante, Dr. Marlana Karenga, right? I'm missing a lot of people. George G.M. James, right? Sharshi McIntyre. I can go on and on. All them. The board went on and voted 7-0 approved the curriculum. I never spoke about this on this platform. Hit that share button, hit that retweet for me. The board approved it 7-0. I want y'all to understand what that meant. I don't know if they knew what they approved or not, right? I don't know. I might add J.A. Rogers, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey, Black Panther Party, right? Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale. All that stuff was in there. The board voted 7-0 to approve that curriculum that this young 30-something-year-old teacher was writing every day in the curriculum office, social studies curriculum office, in a back room by myself. As far as I know, I could be wrong. But as far as I know, I was the only one in that district that taught from that curriculum. I just looked at my son, man. I think I was the only one because I never heard about nobody else that was teaching it. But that's not my point. Here's my point. I wrote the curriculum that I always wished that Black children had exposure to. Now I could teach with my door wide open. Because if my administration, who I love dearly, by the way, if my administration came into my room and said, "Ooh, Kafele, you can't teach that," I'd be like this. Let's pretend this is the curriculum. No, I can. I can. In fact, let me see if I can put my hands on this other curriculum. I can't find it. Here it is. Here it is. This is a different curriculum that I wrote. I wrote this. East Orange School District, Sojourner Truth Middle School, the Institute of Science, Technology, and African-Centered Studies. Now, that part, African-Centered Studies, I added that. The superintendent allowed me. This is later when I was a principal. Written by Baruti K. Kafele, July 2000. I wrote this. So, because when I became a principal, I didn't want like what I was doing as a teacher to end. So I go to the superintendent and I say, "Yo, can I write a curriculum for my school?" And like those of you who are regulars on here, you know I talk to you about communication, being able to bring people around to your way of thinking. So it's not like I just went in there, "Yo, we need an African-centered curriculum." No. I got to know how to talk to people, man. I'm teaching right now. I got to know how to talk to people because I want to bring them. Let's get that camera back the way it's supposed to be. All right, here we go. Yeah, here we go. I need to bring people around to my way of thinking because like most of us in our thinking, we think our thinking is the right thinking. So I'm thinking my thinking is the right thinking. So I need to bring you around to my way of thinking. Here we went. Sojourner Truth Middle School, East Orange, New Jersey, African American History 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And then not to mention that my man Hubert Chase and Ted Bowler wrote the 7th grade curriculum because that was 6 and 8. Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. Let me say that again. Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. Plainfield principal Deetria Smith Sneed was the core teacher of that 8th grade curriculum. She's been on here before as well as Hubert Chase. I know I got a topic today, y'all, but I gotta couch it in a backdrop, right? Because I'm like, again, Luther Vandross is my man. I love him. I'm just doing what he did. He go to Madison Square Garden. I'm sitting right there in the audience. He said, "I'm going to take my time singing these love songs." What you think them fans did? 20,000 people in the garden. They screamed. Y'all scream for me. Scream. Yeah, Tony Browder. Hey, Keena, thank you. Because the book, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, I forgot to give you the author. We use his book. Right? So think about this, Keena Walker. Tony Browder's book was a standard at grade 7. That's a college book. So we made it a standard at grade 7 with teacher who's now Principal Hubert Chase, able to make it understandable for 7th graders. See, y'all don't just look at me as the guy that comes on Saturday, man. It's more to me than that, y'all. It's more to me. One could say what we did as far as my curriculum in grade 5 and my curriculum in as a principal, that's revolutionary, man. That's stuff you read about with private schools. That's stuff you read about with charter schools. I was in the hood public school, East Orange, New Jersey. But see, I was birthed in the authors that I just gave you. I'm birthed in them. Before I was exposed to them, I'm the walking dead. I'm asleep. I'm asleep with my eyes open. But then when I'm exposed to these great authors and historians and researchers and scholars, now I become that. So now I become a teacher. All I know is them. These books up on this shelf and over there. That's all I know. So I just go on and say, okay, well, let me take them and make them who the kids learn. I taught Kwanzaa. I taught in Nguzo Saba like we were singing Mary Had a Little Lamb, like matter of factly, like Umoja, Kuji Chagalia, Ujima, Ujamaa, Nia, Kaumba, Imani. We taught that like it was just something, nothing. Like matter of fact, this is what you need to know. I wish I had some of my former students on here. They probably getting ready for the day. You know how that is, man. But they got what we were doing in the back of their mind. Let me see what Keena said. He said you had a disease way back there. Yeah. Smartest guy in the room who can communicate your vision. Now, let me tell y'all, for those of you that don't know what Keena's talking about, let me read it again. You had a disease way back then. Smartest guy in the room who can communicate your vision. In other words, Jaylen Brown, who is risen up to be my favorite NBA player now, right? the guy, the commentator, Colin, what's his name, man? Colin somebody. I can't think of it right now because I'm on a roll. He said he said that Jaylen Brown's got a disease of being the smartest guy in the room, right? Wanting to be the smartest guy in the room. See, in other words, that black excellence got to be too much that they said we got to get rid of him, right? That's all that was, right? So I appreciate that, Keena. So Keena's been a guest on here too, by the way. Hey, y'all, I know I got a topic, man, so let's get to it. So I was talking about Frederick Douglass, right? And every 4th of July. But let me make something plain to y'all because I'm going to read a little something to you from this. But let me make something plain because somebody might misconstrue me. I'm American, man. I got roots in Africa that I'll probably never know. All I know is America. That's all I know, right? I visited other places, but as far as living, all I know is America. That is all I know. So I'm an American. But when I say I'm an American, I don't lose sight of what America stands for. I don't lose sight of America's foundation. I don't lose sight of what it is to be black in America. But make no mistake about it, ain't nobody going to take this from me and claim it from me. I'm the one that's waving the flags, got the flags on the cars and all that kind of stuff right now, playing that song that I ain't going to even try to mimic, right? I'm just as American as you are. But I got my own perspective on it, right? Because I understand the history of black people in America, right? So let's not get that twisted. Somebody be on here, man, Kafele is un-American. Oh no. Let me get my camera on that one. If there was someone in this world, this education world that knows me and would say that, I say, how dare you? And I would say, who the hell do you think you are to accuse me of being un-American? Right? You can't. I'm as American as they come because I'm one of the descendants of the enslaved that was brought here. Enough said. Let's go, y'all. Hey, listen, y'all. I got some stuff to read to you. I'm still in the monologue, man. I don't know when we gonna get out of this, but I got some stuff to read to you. Let me go to that page. Check this out in case you don't have this book, right? Or you haven't, or you're not familiar with this speech. I got like just a few short paragraphs I want to read to you. Oh, wait a minute. Told y'all I'm taking my time singing his love songs, man. I can't read this yet. I forgot to give you some. I didn't look at my notes. Some of y'all might not know Frederick Douglass. Let me give you some backdrop, man. Somebody hit that retweet, hit that repost. Let them know I'm here, man. I'm here. I hope you here. Listen, somebody, I got to give you some backdrop on Frederick Douglass. When that man was 12 years old, his slave master's wife introduced him to the alphabet and began to teach him how to read until the slave master found out and said, you can't teach our slaves how to read and write. But guess what? She already taught him. Now he could build off of it. And he was meeting some, as it said, impoverished white children, and he would trade with them like, here's some bread. Teach me some more about reading and writing. So he would learn. And next thing he knew, he's building a vocabulary. We're talking about young 12-year-old Frederick Douglass. See, I can't read this just yet because I got to let you know who the man is. So now he's learning to read. But in the meantime, he's still classified as enslaved. So now he was one of them defiant captives, though. Right, he wasn't one that just not committed, but submitted to it. But he was defiant in it. So they assigned Frederick Douglass to a slave breaker. I don't know if you knew that. They assigned him to a slave breaker, and they had him live with this breaker whose last name was Covey. So they had him live with this breaker, and that breaker couldn't break him. So for a whole year, he's living on this farm with this breaker that the master wanted him to break Frederick. His name wasn't Douglass at the time, right? So finally, Frederick, in this case, we're talking about Frederick Douglass, he got fed up and he fought back. And they fought for 2 hours in a barn. And that breaker, he whooped his behind. Y'all know I would say that different if I wasn't on camera, right? Whooped his behind. But that was at age 16. That was in 1834. So he still had to endure plantation life until 1838 when he decided it was time to escape. So in 1838, at the age of 20, he started plotting and planning. He got himself a disguise. It was a sailor's uniform. He got himself, as they call it, sailor's protection pass from a free black man, and he used that. He jumped on a train as a sailor in Baltimore, and he traveled all the way to New York City, right? And then from New York City, he traveled to Massachusetts, right? And now he's living as a free man. However, the fugitive slave law, there are two of them, 1793 and 1850, right? So the 1793 is still in effect because it's not 1850 yet. So it's still in effect. So he's got to be watchful of the fact that he could be captured at any time. But then he ultimately goes to England, and he starts speaking and raising money, and enough that the folks who were sponsoring him were able to purchase his freedom. And now he's a free man. He comes back to America. Right. So I wanted to give you that as a backdrop before I get into this speech. Right. So now I'm not going to read the whole speech. That would take me quite a few hours. Right. But I want to read a few paragraphs. He said, this Frederick Douglass, this speech was delivered on July 5th, 1852. Right. July 5th, 1852. That's critical because we're talking about a day after July 4th, right? So they wanted him to speak. And he said in the speech, What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy alliance. Unholy license. I'm sorry. Your national greatness, swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than the people of the United States at this very hour. Whew. We could do the whole session just on that alone, right? So much there, but I wanted to read one more piece to you before I jump into the body of why we're here this morning. He said, but such is not the state of the case. I say it with a real sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. Blessings in which you, this day, rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean citizens to mock me by asking me to speak today? If so, there is a parallel to your conduct. And let me warn you that it is dangerous to copy the example of a nation whose crimes, towering up to heaven, were thrown down by the breath of the Almighty, burying that nation into irrevocable ruin. I can today take up the plaintive lament of peeled and woe-smitten people. And I'm gonna end it right there. That's a lot there, y'all. Feel free to put your thoughts in the comments. But if you feel that putting your thoughts in the comments we get you in some kind of trouble, then don't put any thoughts in the comments. Now, Yolanda, I'm not muted, so just check and see if it's on your end. Is anybody else out there wondering if I'm muted? Just tell me if you're hearing me. Okay, you can hear. Okay, Yolanda, that means you good now. All right, good. All right, we good. I got y'all. All right, so y'all. But before I end this monologue, I got something for you. I wrote in my notes. I said, let's look at the numbers. So in 1790, there were 698,000 enslaved. Right, 1790. In 1800, there were 893,000 enslaved. In 1808, the transatlantic slave trade was abolished. Right, now check again. 1808, the transatlantic slave trade was abolished. But in 1810, there were 1.19 million enslaved. So what is that about? Let's look at it. This thing called slave breeding was a real thing. Slave breeding and the domestic slave trade was a real thing. Not to mention the Fugitive Slave Act, which when you capture people in the North, they had no rights that the white man was bound to respect, right? But we'll get into that language a little bit later. So at the time of emancipation, 1863, there are 4 million enslaved. I just want you to process that for a minute. 1810, 1.19 19 million. But by 1860, 4 million. Slave breeding was a real thing, right? So let's keep that in mind. So remember, as I close the monologue, that for political purposes, according to Article 1, Section 2 of the original Constitution of 1887, the enslaved were essentially rendered 3/5 of a human being. Right? I should say 1787. I'm sorry. Once again, remember that for political purposes, according to Article 1 and Section 2 of the original Constitution, Black people, the enslaved, were essentially rendered 3/5 of a human being. Translation, subhuman, right? So as I close my monologue and transition to the body of my talk today, let me say this to you again. I look at the 4th of July from the lens of a Black man. The title of this presentation today, America 250 through the lens of a Black urban educator, right? I'm not going to ignore the foundation of this country, because when 1776 got here and it was declared and these colonies were declared independent, well, then America had a choice. You could free the enslaved population, right? You could free that population. But they decided, nah, we're going to build upon it, right? All right. Well, that's the story. So somebody out there, don't pretend it doesn't exist. It exists. And we can acknowledge it and study it 365 days a year. But this day is a day that my soul, my spirit, my thoughts, my mindset goes a little bit deeper on this day, because this was Independent Day. This is Independent Day. And America had the opportunity to render their enslaved as independent as well, free. They chose not to. And they remained enslaved for an additional 87 years. Chew on that for a minute. That's my monologue, y'all. If you thought that had something in it, I got more to say. I got a lot more to say. That was just the appetizer, right? So my topic again, y'all, let's get into it. Do me a favor before I jump into it, hit that share button, retweet, repost, text somebody, tag somebody, call somebody, let them know. We're still the education platform. I'm not talking leadership today. I'm talking about what should be happening under your leadership, right? So we're still education. But I'm saying to you, your children, right, your students should be armed with this sort of information, right? Your teachers, your staff meetings. You don't have to talk about the fact that the copier's still broken. You don't have to talk about the fact that the teachers still weren't at the doors between greeting kids between classes. You can put that in an email or a newsletter. And then at the staff meeting, we can read just those 4 paragraphs I read here and dissect them. And I promise you, you will have folks in that room like, oh. And even folks that don't agree with you politically, like, oh, that was said by Frederick Douglass. I happen to admire him. Yeah, well, here's the side of Douglass that you may not have known. Right? So now it gives you a fuller picture of who the man was and people like him. You know, even, Frederick Douglass's grave is in Rochester, New York. And 2 summers ago, the past 2 summers, that's what it was. I spoke in Rochester. Where'd I go when I finished speaking? Y'all know where I went? Right to Frederick Douglass' gravesite. And they got all this grass. I sat right in that grass and weeds, right? It's more weeds. I sat right in them weeds. Had on my good clothes too. Sat right in them weeds, man. It's like it's not like like Malcolm. I told you when I went to see Malcolm's gravesite about 2 months ago. Well, it's not flat in the ground like a marker. This is like this big. So I sat there, man, and I just reflected on this speech. What a great man, right? Let's go. Let's go. 87. I see a few of y'all commenting on that. Yeah, 87 more years. 87 more. Hey, Principal Azor Wells, good to see you this morning. Appreciate you. Let's go, y'all. I got a lot to talk about, man. I'm taking my time singing these love songs, though, right? I ain't rushing. If you can't stay, I understand. I got 16 questions. That's what this presentation, this message is comprised of. 16 questions. Let me mute you for a hot second. All right, here we go. Question number 1. What do I know about the circumstances upon which the first Africans arrived to America, including the year and date? Right. So I got banners, I got questions to put on the screen for y'all, so you can have something to keep you focused. Here we go. What do I know about the circumstances upon which the first Africans arrived to America, including year and location? And then just the hashtag, you'll see that all throughout the message, America 250 through the lens of a Black urban educator. In case anybody didn't know who that person was, me, right? So I'm giving you this through my lens, right? Here we go. So I guess I got these three bullet points here that I wanted to go through. Forever since I've been conscious, so let's say not forever, but since 1984, I have been saying to people that the first Africans arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, Isabella and Antonio, in Jamestown, and and I never gave it a second thought. That was where I was, and then I stumbled on something. I still have more research to do, so I'm not going to say that this is definitive, but this is what I stumbled on, and I was all over the internet this week, like trying to verify, and it was verified, but I need to talk to some people who are really in the know, right? So here's what it said. Like, matter of fact, I spoke in Williamsburg, Virginia, about 2 weeks ago. So I was going to go to Jamestown because I had like 3 hours to kill. I was going to go to Jamestown and visit that site. But as I'm looking it up, it's saying, but Jamestown's not the site. So I'm like, what are you talking about? So at that point, I hadn't done the research. I'm just like, I'm thrown off because they're saying that's not where the first Africans, because I'm looking for where the first Africans arrived as indentured servants from Africa. It said no. It said the Hampton area. And I'm like, I did one of these, man. And I went on to the airport, right? I'm like, it can't be. So then I didn't think about it for a while. And then when I started preparing for this, I started, diving deep. And it kept saying Hampton. I'm like, Hampton? What about Jamestown? It's not even near Hampton. So then it said, yeah. It said this area called Point Comfort near Hampton University, where my daughter graduated from, right? It said Point Comfort. It said an English vessel intercepted a Portuguese vessel that had captives from the west coast of Africa. And it brought them to Point Comfort, which is now a military base. And they dropped them off there. It was 20 something. I'd never heard that before. So, and again, don't hold me to it yet. This, this is all internet reading on that. I still got to research it more, but I'm just telling you that's what's out there. This young man, someone gave him a tip, and he did all the research. I forget his name. I didn't write it in my notes, but he did all the research. But you can Google it. And it turned out they have a celebration there every year now, right? There's monuments, everything at this site, Point Comfort, Hampton, Virginia, right? So just keep that in mind. But for those that may not have known, they did not come as slaves, Jamestown or Point Comfort. They came as indentured servants, which mean that they were there under a contract. And then they could, and after serving the contract, which was typically 5 to 7 years, then they can go on and be free. So a lot of them were free, just like the white population that was there for a period of time. Then a lot migrated north. But obviously things change over time, because now we're talking 1619. right? So we're talking about in the very beginning stages. Let's go. So that was the first question. What do I know about the circumstances upon which the first Africans arrived to America, including the year and location? Let's go to number 2, because we're going to get heavy this morning, y'all. What do I know about Black participation in the Revolutionary War, right? Before I even peep at my notes, let me say this to you. There's a lot of people in this country. I know this definitively because I ask certain questions of people. You know, I'm a question guy, as you know. And there's a lot of folks that don't know that Black people fought in the American Revolution, right? There's still a lot that don't know that Black people fought in the Civil War. But Black people fought in the American Revolution. Black people fought in the Revolutionary War. Let me give you the numbers. Both sides, the British side and the colonist side, the colonial side, they both wanted Black people fighting on their side because they're both looking for an advantage. So England had 20,000 Black men fighting on their side under the promise of freedom if England won the war, right? No, the promise of freedom at the end of the war, right? So the promise of freedom at the end of the war. Well, the war ends, 1781, and a lot of them went right back to them plantations, right? But on the colonial side, you had anywhere from 5,000 to 9,000 enslaved Black men fighting for America's independence. Let me say that again, because somebody might have missed that. You had 5,000 to 9,000 Black men fighting for the colonists on the colonial side for America's independence with the promise of freedom after the war. The overwhelming majority of them went back to those plantations, and their descendants continued to be on those plantations again for the next 87 years. You got to know that, because see, when we talk about Black people, the enslaved that fought in the war, they didn't just fight. You had soldiers that fought valiantly, that distinguished themselves in war, right? So people like Peter Salem Poor, and others that fought along with George Washington. Those of us that do the deeper reading, we know this, but then there are others who do not. So I got way ahead of myself. Let me go back. Let's go back to 1770. Let's go to March the 5th, 1770. So you got the colonists who are upset with the fact that you got all this military occupation right downtown Boston, the King Street area by the courthouse. So they're throwing snowballs at them, meaning the colonists. They're throwing debris at the military, right? And the military just starts shooting. They start shooting randomly. And the first person to die was a Black man. We're talking about the Boston Massacre by the name of Crispus Attucks. If you go to Boston, there's a huge statue of him right in Boston, of the first man who happened to be Black to die for this country. Crispus Attucks. When I was a kid, they used to have Crispus Attucks Day. They don't have that anymore. I don't know why, but they don't, right? But the first person, I see you wrote that, Keena, good stuff, right? So the first one to die for America's freedom. So that was in March 5, 1770. Then you had the Tea Act in 1773, which I'm not going to get into, the Boston Tea Party in 1773 with them 342 crates of tea thrown into the Boston Harbor due to taxation. But I'm not going to get into all that because I want to keep it the African-American component. So, and then the war begins on April 19, 1775 with the battles of Lexington and Concord, right? I know somebody might get mad at me for saying this, and probably I shouldn't say it. My wife might even correct me. I don't know, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I remember when the current president, I won't say by name, he was speaking in New Hampshire, and there's a town in New Hampshire called Concord, and he referenced them as if that was where the American Revolution began. And I just said, I just did a big SMH, shaking my head, right? And I'll leave it right there because I ain't trying to talk about that guy. Number 3, let me put it up on the screen first. Let me put it up on the screen because we getting ready to get like I'm just whetting your appetite, y'all. We getting ready to get heavy, man. So buckle up. What do I know about the intricacies of the peculiar institution known as enslavement? Once again, the topic, America's 250 through the lens of a Black urban educator, me. Let me read that question to you again. What do I know about the intricacies of the peculiar institution known as enslavement? Now, I want to recommend a book first before I go into it. The Peculiar Institution, Slavery in the Antebellum South by Kenneth Stamp. It's a thick book, but I love this book. This was a part of my development. I read it for the first time in 1986, right? 1986, The Peculiar Institution. There's so much in here, y'all. So much in here. I don't know if it's still in print. I have no idea. You can go to another tab, go to Amazon right now. If it's in print, I would encourage you to get this book, right? Get this book. All right, let's go. I got a lot to say about this this question, so buckle up. The correlation, my first thought is the correlation between slavery and the economic growth of America is incomparable. Probably the profitability through unpaid labor. Let me say that again. The correlation between slavery and the economic growth of America is incomparable. We've never seen anything like it anywhere else on the planet. Profitability through unpaid labor. I mean, just think about it. And this is why this day means something very different to me than the one rolling around the streets with the flag hanging from the back of the truck, right? I'm American too. You can't take that from me. But I look at America through the eyes of one who's a descendant of the enslaved, who, where I am right now, built this country from 1619, and I'm not going to say to 1863, I'm going to say to 1865 unpaid. But I can go beyond 1865 because there's something called sharecropping, where them folks were beat out of their money for excuse me for using slang, and weren't hardly making money. My grandmother, I didn't say my great-grandmother, I didn't say my great-great-grandmother, my grandmother, who's the mother of my mother, who's on here watching right now at 91 years old. My grandmother was a sharecropper, right? So we're not talking about a long time ago. My grandmother was a sharecropper until she traveled north with the great migrations and came to Jersey, right? First Pennsylvania, Philly, I think Philly, and then Jersey. So I'm saying to you, I could say 1619 to 1863. I could say that, but the reality is it went on much further, right into the civil rights movement, right? So again, so we're talking about a country that was able to grow so fast. I mean, look, we're just at 250 and it's considered the greatest nation in the world, right? As far as just how lucrative it is. But when you got a head start of 1619, and just for the sake of discussion, I'll go to 1865 with the end of the Civil War. So you got a 200-year head start of you ain't paying your labor. You are literally stealing them from another continent. Then of course you're going to grow, right? But again, so when I look at this day, July 4th, that's what I see. I ain't seeing no UFC on the White House lawn. Are you kidding me? No, I'm seeing oppression. But let's get deeper, y'all. My first subtopic: methods of capture, right? So I'm gonna read something verbatim to you because I don't want to mess this up. So many individuals were made prisoners of war during conflicts between African states and empires, right? European traders often fueled these conflicts by providing weapons and guns in exchange for captives. So you got groups fighting one another, and then you got those fights being exploited, but they didn't know what was going to be on the other side of them voyages. They had no idea, right? But then on the other hand, kidnapping and raiding. Armed raiding parties, kidnappers, frequently ambush remote villages or seized individuals while they worked in the fields. This was highly disruptive and caused massive political instability across the region. So on the one hand, you got conflict amongst Africans in the West Coast, but you also got armed raiders, kidnappers who just go in and steal people, right? So you got both things happening. The deeper you got into it, into the continent, as you got into the hinterlands, it's European traders off. No, this is not in my. This is somewhere else in my notes. So I'm just go ahead and say it. Sometimes the Europeans didn't go deep into the continent because they were fearful. So they were able to use Africans to do the work that they wanted to do. Right. So you got that going on. You know, that's a bitter truth to swallow, but it's real. So the impact of capture on African lives, civilizations, and culture was immeasurable. I mean, again, this is my thinking on a July 4th of when you think about the volume of people being taken away from their homeland and the impact, the adverse impact that would have on the lives of the people who are still there, which is inclusive of just fear of it could happen to them, civilization, and culture, right? So some of the impact. But let's talk about that middle passage. So they're brought to the West Coast. They're forts that still stand today. You can go and visit them on the West Coast of Africa. Most people go to Ghana and Senegal. And there are these forts. There were no bathrooms. So the defecation happened on the floor. So over those centuries, that defecation became embedded in the ground. And now when you go there, you're walking not on a cement floor, but you're walking on defecation that has hardened. And I haven't been yet, but I've seen the videos, and I can, if I acted the way I did at ASCD last Sunday, I can only imagine who I'd be when I walk into one of those slave forts, right? So but yeah, so now here they are. They're staying there for long periods of time until that ship leaves. It could be a month or more until they're loaded onto those cramped ships, and then that 90-day voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. I've only flown across the Atlantic Ocean one time in my life to England. That flight was long, so I can only imagine what in an old ship back in those days, beginning in the 1600s, although Portuguese transatlantic slave trade started in the 1400s, Spanish in the 1500s. When we say the 1600s, we're talking about America, right? But we can go back 200 more years, right? 1400s, Portuguese are well into it. They traded more enslaved than any other country, over 6 million, right? So, but let's talk about that middle passage. Historians, I think their estimates are typically low because there's a lot of estimates of at least 100 million Africans that never made it to America, that were dumped overboard into the Atlantic Ocean, and those bones exist to this day. So the numbers are as high as 100 million, but historians like to say between 1.8 to 2 million. I think that's grossly undercounted, right? But 1.8 to 2 million Africans thrown overboard because they were sick, right? Had disease, malnutrition, and I'll get to that. Let me stay where I am because I'm trying to cover three things at one time. So packed ships, which accounted for 10 to 15% of 10 to 15% mortality rate on those ships. I want you to think about that. 10 to 15% of the people on the ship did not make it. And that's a lot of ships. That's a lot of people. So some people would say, some historians will estimate 1.8 to 2 million enslaved that died in the Middle Passage, right? But others will take it as far as, everything in between, all the way up to 100 million, right? So the devastating death toll was a direct result of horrific, cramped conditions. Because remember, you've seen the pictures, right? I was thinking about putting pictures on the presentation, but I know everybody's seen them. Just packed in a ship, in the hull of a ship, like sardines. You can't get up to go eat. You can't get up to go to the bathroom. Everything is done right there, right? So now you got people packed in together. Naturally, people get sick, then everybody gets sick. So you got these horrific cramped conditions. You got rampant disease. You got malnutrition. You got dehydration, and then you got physical abuse, right? So all that's happening, and you want me to be running around here with a flag on my car? Are you serious? Right? This is the founding of America, right? And again, I'm American, y'all. I ain't gonna deny that, but I'm gonna be truthful about what America is. And my hope is that I got some people that's not on this thread that said, I ain't gonna get on the thread. I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna hear this, man. I hope you're here, and I hope you learning something, right? That you said, I ain't gonna type nothing here because I don't want no one to know I'm watching this. Right? That's fine. I'm good with that. And actually I understand it. But I don't want you to leave. Stay here or watch the video later. Right? Let's go. So now they get to America. Man, you got an auction block. Right? So I mean, like I've been places, and I'm not going to try to imitate this, but I've been places where there's auctions in the room. You know how they have auctions? It could be cars, could be trips, it could be anything. But you know how that auctioneer, how they talk, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not going to try to imitate that. But every time I hear that, I literally was speaking in a hotel somewhere in the South. I don't remember where it was. Just all I remember was the South, and it was an Embassy Suites. That's all I remember. But in order to get to the elevator, you had to pass this room where this auction was happening. And this man on there with that talk, I'm not going to play with it, y'all. I'm not going to do it. I just don't want to. I could do it, but I'm not going to, right? And he was doing that auction thing, and man, something was happening inside of me, man. Like I ain't even want to do the presentation. The presentation was in that hotel. Something inside of me wanted to go in the room and say, yo, man, close the door. I know what they were selling. They were selling art. That's what it was. It had the frames and all that. They were selling art. And something inside of me took me to them plantations, man. Something inside of me took me to them auction blocks. Can you imagine that? So let's say somebody on here, you don't know anything about that. They on the auction block naked. They open their mouth and checking to see that the inside their mouth, their teeth. They bend over, they spread their buttocks and examining their behind while everybody's watching to determine how much you're going to bid in the auction. That's what the 4th of July is to me. That's what Independence Day is for me. Human beings, Black people, Africans, minding their own business in Africa, primarily the West. But see, I don't want to open up this can of worms of the East with the Arab slave trade. I don't want to open that can of worms, but I guess I just did. But don't lose sight of the fact that the slave trade was not just West Africa to the Western Hemisphere. It was East Africa to Asia. Don't lose sight of that. But that's for another time, right? Let's go. So the workload. Malcolm talked about like this a lot, man. You listen to Malcolm's old speeches, Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, 14 to 18 hours a day. Malcolm says sun up to sundown. Saturdays you work, Sunday, and check out Sunday for those that don't know. You get Sunday off, but like they families, they live in cabins. You got families, married people with children. They got their own work to do. They got clothes to wash, food to prepare. But the master made sure, I'm going to get a little closer to the speaker on this. The master made sure to provide them with alcohol. Yeah. The master made sure to provide them with alcohol to keep them intoxicated. They did that. Right? So again, that I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it throughout. That's where my mind is on 4th of July. I'm not into this day, y'all. This ain't mine. Not this day. This country is mine. I own this. It's mine. I built this through my ancestors. But this 1776 day of celebration, no, this ain't mine, man. The only thing I claim with this is them soldiers that fought in that war, because they made an impact. They made a difference. Let's go. 14 to 18 hours a day. Y'all know how like back when I was doing my 9 to 5 days, and I'd be like, man, that's a long day. 14 to 18. Like right now, we're in a heat wave in the Northeast. I guess it's the whole East Coast. So we averaging over 100 degrees, right? But in the South, that's every day. That ain't even a heat wave. That's just normal temperatures in the summer. And they work in them fields with them flannel clothes, right? With a quota. With a quota. Check it out. So so what are they doing? They clearing land, hoeing, which that word became something else over time, but let's use it the way it was originally intended to be used. Hoeing, picking and processing cotton. Enslaved workers had to meet rigid quotas. So, for example, they may be responsible for harvesting 75 to 100 pounds of cotton multiple times a day. Hear me, somebody. 75 to 100 pounds of cotton multiple times a day. Failure to do so, failure to meet quota, could result in brutal physical punishment. I'm taking my time singing these love songs, baby. That's what Luther said. So they're not just in the field working as the enslaved, as captives. They got quotas. So I'm just giving you this example. So maybe 75 to 100 pounds of cotton multiple times a day, and I don't meet my quota, then I might be whipped. But they had methods of breaking the spirits and punishment of the enslaved towards submission, which was called seasoning, which include whippings. And usually those whippings were in front of everybody to send a message to everybody. This could be you. So they're not just breaking the one who they're whipping. They breaking everybody to say, keep your eye on it, because that could be you, right? Beatings, torture, and mutilation. We're going to get deeper into that mutilation. We're going to get deep today. Whippings, beatings, torture, mutilation. Let's go. I'm still on number 3, y'all. Let's talk about branding and disfigurement. I know people like to get branded, man. I ain't even gonna go any further with it, because I don't want folks, I don't like what he said on that part, so I ain't gonna do it. But I'm gonna tell you this: you brand the enslaves so that folks know that slave is owned by somebody, right? So I'm just gonna leave it right there. I don't feel like the wrath of anybody, right? So you branded as slaves to let you know that you owned by somebody, but you also branded as punishment. Imagine that hot iron. Try it sometime. No, I shouldn't say that, because some of y'all do, right? But still, those of us who don't, imagine that hot iron, right? Or disfigurement. So runaways frequently branded on their faces or body. Imagine that. Enslavers also cut off the ears and enslaved people to permanently mark them as property. Cut off the ears. Amputation, hands, fingers Toes were sometimes amputated for minor offenses to disable those who attempted to escape. Y'all, I know I'm not talking leadership today. I'm talking about things that the young people need to know, but I don't mean present it the way I'm presenting it, because I don't want to create an inferiority complex in children. When I was teaching this, everything you hear me talking about today, this is what I was teaching my fifth graders, but not the way I'm presenting it now, because I can't run the risk of creating an inferiority complex in children. So I'm going to be very sensitive in how I expose them to this information, because I don't want them looking at white people and get scared, or look at white people and feel they're inferior to me. No, we're not doing that. Hey, Jonathan, you know where I want to go, but I ain't going to go there, Jonathan. You know, I ain't going there. I don't feel like the wrath today. I'm going to keep it right where it's at, like right here, even keel, right? Amputation. I said it, I'm gonna read it again. Hands, fingers, toes was sometimes amputated for minor offenses or to disable those who attempted to escape. So now if I could cut off your toes, now there's a lower probability of you trying to escape. Yes. I see you, Crete and Educate, probably Sheikah. Yeah, let's stay there for a second, Sheikah and Jonathan. To the teachers out there, or to the leaders who are inspired by this and say, I gotta catch up. No, you can't deliver to the children like this. I hope none are listening. And if they are, I hope their parents can kind of put it in context, because I'm not trying to create no inferior, like, man, that blacks must have been weak. You know, I don't want that. Nah, but when you got the firepower, right? It's easier to enslave somebody versus when they had the same thing you have, right? And then you also got to remember that nations rise and nations fall, right? So, but that's a whole different conversation. Let me keep going. Here's one that I hope no children are listening to: sexual mutilation and violence. Enslaved men were subjected to castration to strip them of their dignity. Once again, enslaved men subjected to castration, right? To strip them of their dignity. Yeah, man. Yep. So again, we talking about just methods of punishment, right? Let's go. I'm still there though. I'm still there. Teeth and nails. Punishment routinely included knocking out teeth and tearing out the fingernails. Can you imagine that? Sometimes you and I, we got to, our fingernail gets caught into something, a car door or something, right? And the pain. But imagine you enslaved, you captive, and to punish you, they just rip out your fingernail and knock out your teeth. Once again, another form of punishment, which was routinely included as part of the punishment of the enslaved. But also the branding that I said, plantation jails, right? So jailing black men is nothing new. It happened on the plantations. See, a lot of us don't know. A lot of us, our teachers only gave us this vague, general information. And I'm only on page 4, man. I got a lot to talk about, so I hope y'all can hang out with me, right? But plantation jails, splitting up families. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. Denial of food, clothing, and shelter. So in terms of punishment, let me starve him or her. Let me deny you of clothing. Let me deny you of shelter. Rain, heat, extreme heat like we got right now, right? Well, let's go back to the splitting of families. Man, can you imagine it? So, although they were enslaved, you still have families emerge. Jump over the broom. They married. It's where it came from. Some of y'all jumping over brooms don't even know the history, right? So that's where it came from. So now you have children. And imagine on the one hand, to sell the wife, sell the husband, sell a child, or in terms of punishment, to split up a family just to punish somebody. You want me to roll up my street with a flag blowing from my car this afternoon? Nah, I'm American, but that ain't the way I celebrate. The very people I'm talking about right now, that's who I celebrate. Let me tell you why. The only reason that I sit here today is because somebody in my ancestry, and I shouldn't say somebody, folks in my ancestry survived this madness, or else I'm not here. Not in this form anyway. I guess I'm somebody else. But so we're talking about the strength, the fortitude, the fight of people, many of us on this call, people in our bloodline. Let's go. But there are these other atrocities. I'm still on this number 3. I'm going to 16. And I'm not doing a parts 1 and 2, by the way. If y'all can't hang with me, that's all right. I'll just record. The ongoing sale of human beings. Number 3 is the longest, by the way. So we're good. The ongoing sale of human beings who were considered the property of their owners, including auctions. The destruction of Black families, including the sale of children. The ongoing and widespread rape of women and men. See, a lot of times when we think of rape, we think of women as far as enslavement. But let me dispel that. And there's a lot you can read. I'll give you a book, Africa's Gift to America by J.A. Rogers. I got ahead of myself. The ongoing and widespread rape of women and men. It's part of the story of America, y'all. Slave breeding after 1808, the abolishment of the Atlantic slave trade. So, and I'm not putting this under punishment, I'm putting it under atrocities. So now, you know how dogs are bred? So they breed human beings to produce more, right? I think Virginia was the number one. Matter of fact, I don't have to say I think, I know it was. It was the number 1 slave breeding state in the early United States, right? Slave breeding. Whole lot could be said there, but I'm gonna leave it alone. Resistance to enslavement. So now we're talking about resistance. Do me a favor before I get to resistance. Hit that share button, somebody. Hit that retweet, repost, tag somebody, text somebody, call somebody, holler at somebody, let them know I'm here. I'm talking about the 4th of July. We're talking about America 250 through the lens of a Black urban educator. That's all. That's what I am. That's all I am. Resistance to enslavement. Man, because see, before I give you this list, see, the enslaved, many fought back. See, sometimes different historians, depending on their political slant, they want to cast the enslaved as passive. Like, so people talk about slave mentality. I kind of don't like when I hear that because it makes an assumption that everybody was passive, like, yeah, sir, master. No. That's BS. That's what it is. BS. I ought to say the word just to make the point, but I won't, because it could be children watching, right? So destruction of tools, destroying of crops, pretending illness, stealing property, work slowdowns. Watch this. Self-mutilation. So before, when I said mutilation in terms of punishment, so self-mutilation to get me out of this 14 to 18 hour work. Suicide and infanticide. Yeah. Kill oneself. The mindset, I'd rather die than to be a slave. Infanticide. I'm not letting my offspring, this is the mindset, I'm not letting my offspring grow into a slave, because you're a slave from birth. When you come out the womb, you're a slave. So I'm not letting my offspring be subjected to that living, so I will kill my own. And people talking about the slave mentality when they mocking somebody. No. That's dismissing probably 4/5 of what enslavement was. Running away, including the Underground Railroad. And I mean, in running away, you think about them swamps in the South, right? All them animals, deep South, Florida, alligators, all that stuff, right? But taking that risk. And you and I, we jump on 95. Those of you in the Northeast, Southeast, we jump on 95 from Florida and drive up to Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts and all that. And we like, man, that's a long friggin' ride. So how about them? They didn't have interstate highway to get up north. Think about it, y'all. They riding in a carriage, a horse-drawn carriage in the night. Spontaneous and planned strikes. We're talking about resistance to slavery. So spontaneous and planned strikes. We gonna shut it down. But here, let's get a little deeper. Revolts and rebellions. Let me tell y'all something. We don't always hear about the revolts. And if we do, we'll hear about the failed revolt of Gabriel Prosser in Richmond, Virginia in 1800. Or we'll hear about Denmark Vesey in Charleston, South Carolina, another failed rebellion in 1822. Why were they failed? Because somebody within the circle told the master that the rebellion was going to happen. But then you had Nat Turner's rebellion, but I'm not there yet. So let me go backwards. Revolts and rebellions. Let me tell you how many are recorded. Recorded rebellions anywhere from 250 to 300. Recorded. But then there's another that's unrecorded that we don't even know about, that history hasn't covered. So you had enslaved populations that said, we fighting back. And what did that fight look like? Killing your master, poisoning your master, right? Arson, burning down the whole big house. Right? So you got the big house on the plantation, arson, burning it down. As they would say, burn down the master's house. So you had resistance. Everybody wasn't passive. You had people enslaved who said, I'm not living my life as a slave. Let's go. Abolitionism. So you had people who were free blacks, and you had whites who were sympathetic to the cause, who were agitating. Right? Let's go. I'm finally at question 4. These won't be as long, but I hope y'all stay. I really do. Here we go. Number 4. What do I know about the abolitionist movement, but specifically the rise of the black press? So in other words, I could sit here and talk about the abolitionist movement, but I wanted, I was mindful of time, and I'm keeping these short. The rest of these questions are short, except when I talk about Dred Scott. I need to give you a little bit more, and that's going to be number 5. So number 4, what do I know about the abolitionist movement, but specifically the rise of the black press? Two people that I just always have held dear when I heard of them were John Russwurm and Samuel Cornish of New York City. They created the first black newspaper, Freedom's Journal, in 1827 in New York City. And that always stayed in my head, even when I was just reading. So when I was just beginning to read, just getting consciousness, I didn't retain everything because it was too much to learn. It was a lifetime worth of information in a short period of time. But something about that Freedom's Journal stood out for me. This newspaper that spoke to the plight of black people, right? And I never forgot those two brothers. And then you had the North Star, Frederick Douglass and Martin R. Delaney, right? And in Rochester, New York. And then ultimately Frederick Douglass published his own paper called Frederick Douglass Paper, right? But by the start of the Civil War in 1861, there were over 40 black-owned and operated, and that's key, black-owned and operated newspapers and other publications, including, it's a book, I should have pulled it off the shelf. I don't know where it is, but it's called David Walker's Appeal. Let me see if I could put my hands on it right quick. I can't. It's probably on the other side of my living room. But David Walker's Appeal was written in, I believe, 1931. And this was a book that the plantation owners did not want on those plantations. You can still get this book. It was all about rebellion. And they did everything they could do to keep that book out of the hands of black people, because even the enslaved, many of them were learning how to read, right? So I read that book back during my come up days in the 80s, but I have it here. It's in this house. David Walker's Appeal. Man, it's probably like staring at me, right? But it might be on the other side of the room. Yeah, it's probably on the other side of the room. That's all right. But yeah, David Walker's Appeal. So you had all these black newspapers who were getting the word out about what was going on down in the South, as far as enslavement. Now, once again, it would be that shelf if I have it. It would be over there somewhere in within those three. But again, it's called David Walker's Appeal. That's the title of the book. Radia, David Walker's Appeal. It's a thin book, right? But them plantation owners were afraid of that book. Hang on, y'all. Cool. Yeah. So that was that. I decided I wasn't going to get all into the abolitionist movement. I just wanted to make sure that y'all were aware that these publications were out there. It's probably over here, man. I'm talking to my son, y'all. It's probably sitting over here, and I just can't see it because it's so much stuff over here, right? We'll get it later. Maybe next week I'll show you. So here we go. Number 5. I've been waiting to get to this one, y'all. Let me put it up here. Number 5. I told you, man, I'm going to number 16. I don't care how long it takes me, man. If y'all could watch some soccer matches all day, you could stay tuned in. Right? What do I know about the Dred Scott decision, 1957? Let me give you this backdrop. It's as a speaker, it's funny how you could speak in a certain part of America and that part of America keeps bringing you back over and over. And then administration changes and they don't know you the same way, right? And now you find yourself in other parts over and over. Well, I used to be in St. Louis like all the time. And some of you know my fascination with the Gateway Arch, the arch. And I stand there and stare at it. But that's not my only fascination. And when I go to St. Louis, I always post the arch, the courthouse, and the statue of Dred and Harriet Scott. Listen, y'all, let's talk about Dred Scott. When I go to St. Louis, man, I have stood in front of that statue of Dred and Harriet Scott more times than I remember. It's what I do. Because his role in American history, listen, you can't talk 4th of July, 1776, America's birthday. You can't have that conversation and there's no discussion around Dred Scott. You can't do it. So Dred Scott was enslaved as a personal servant to his owner. Personal servant. So, and let's I want y'all to think about this for a minute. So we're talking about in Missouri, St. Louis. So we're not talking deep South now. Missouri was a slave state, right? So we talking this man, his name is Dr. John Emerson. He had a personal servant. And his personal servant was Dred Scott, D-R-E-D, or you see it on the screen. So Missouri is a slave state. But see, John Emerson, he was a physician, a surgeon. He was an army surgeon. So he was needed in more than just Missouri. his services were needed in other states. So in 1833, he was needed in Illinois, which was a slave state. So they pack up John Emerson and his wife, and they go to Illinois. That's a free, I'm sorry, Missouri is a slave state. Illinois is a free state. So they go to this free state. All right. But then from there, a couple years later, they go to the Wisconsin Territory, which was inclusive of Minnesota. So now they're in what became Minnesota. They're there, a free state. So now, let's check this out. Dred Scott says, wait a minute. I'm in free territory. I should be free. Right? But the owner's saying, but I own you. So you're still enslaved. So now they go back to Missouri. Dred Scott sues the federal government. And it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. 11-year legal battle culminated into the notorious Supreme Court case. And the decision declared, let me read the exact language, that no enslaved or free black people were citizens of the U.S. and thereby could not sue the federal government. Remember 1787, the 3/5 clause, that black people were considered 3/5. So we're subhuman in the eyes of America, the Constitution, right? So yeah, so let's go back. So the decision declared that no enslaved or free black people were citizens of the U.S. and thereby could not sue the federal government, right? So in other words, as is quoted all the time by me, we don't have to look at the notes on this one either, the black man and woman have no rights that the white man is bound to respect, right? So, but here's the part that a lot of people don't talk about. Dred Scott got his freedom. So I guess the wife understood the hypocrisy to all of it. So there's a long story to this. I'm trying to give you the short story, but Dred Scott had a couple of white friends who were secretly financing everything as far as the court case. So the wife transferred him to that family who ultimately paid for his freedom. But he died a year later in 1858. So he didn't get to live as a free man for a very long time. But the case is critically important when we talk about what led up to the Civil War and what led up to the 14th Amendment, which in a word, we're talking about citizenship, equal protection under the law, right? You can't talk America relative to independence, between independence and Civil War, without talking about Dred Scott. You have to talk about Dred Scott, right? So I gave you the shorter version than what's in my notes, only because I'm only on number 5 and I'm going up to 16. So let's go to this next one. I'm taking my time with this, y'all. Number 6 said, what do I know about the Emancipation Proclamation, including black participation in the Civil War? Again, our topic, America's 250 through the lens of a black urban educator. What do I know about the Emancipation Proclamation, including black participation in the Civil War? Well, it's interesting. And again, fam, if you didn't see the monologue, please go back later on because there's context that needs to be had with everything I'm talking about. Because I was a teacher and I wrote curriculum for the entire district while I was a 5th grade teacher. So I think I was probably the only one in the district that used that curriculum, although it was written for the district. So now I had license to teach everything because I made sure that everything that needed to be in that African American studies curriculum for the K-12 Eastar School District. I bet you're still sitting over there collecting dust in the social studies department. right? But I wrote that curriculum for the district. I was asked by the director of social studies to write it. So K-12, and we took into consideration all grade levels. I don't have a copy of it, so don't ask. The only copy I have is the one I wrote for my school, African American History 1 and 2, my School of Science, Technology, and African-Centered Studies. So that was 6th through 8th grade. So I'm saying that to say this. I taught all of this. But before I wrote that curriculum, I used to sneak and do it. But once I wrote that curriculum, I didn't have to sneak anymore. It was board approved. So I want you to just know that everything I'm talking about this morning, I taught this. This is part of what we did. 5th graders. So let's go. So one of the discussions I love having with my students every year. So Abraham Lincoln declares in 1863 emancipation, right? But if those border states of Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, Delaware, and ultimately West Virginia, who broke away from Virginia because they felt differently about enslavement, if those states fought for the Union, then you can maintain enslavement. And that's never settled with me, ever. It's extreme hypocrisy. I understand it, in terms of having that protection and hence border states. I understand it that way in terms of military warfare, but I'm not looking at it that way. I'm looking at the people who were enslaved. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the ancestry, right? So that's my thing. So I just can't, I just think I can't take pride in that, right? So I'm declaring you, the Southern states, African Americans, enslaved, captives, the Southern states free, which I have no jurisdiction over because now they're the Confederacy, right? So I'm declaring you free, but the ones I can declare free, no, you stay enslaved, right? You stay enslaved as long as you fight with us. So now you got 200,000 plus who escaped due to emancipation, escaped, and now they fight on the side of the Union. Now here's what some historians, they don't want to accept. The Union's losing this war, 1861 to 1863. They losing. But then Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, and you got 200,000 new enlistees who were Black, formerly enslaved, who now gravitate to the Union. That turned the table. Union wins the war. And that's why many of us always say, the Union won the war because Black people won it for the Union. 200,000 that they did not have. You can't ignore that. We can't have no real 1776, 250, America 250. We can't have no real conversation around that if we're not talking about Black people, whether it be enslaved or free, right? We can't have that conversation. You got to talk about the people who were enslaved because that's what built the country, right? Let's go. But Blacks weren't just fighting as soldiers. You had Black people as sailors, scouts, meaning spy operations, nurses, laborers. We fought in all capacities in that war, the Civil War. There's so much more to say about that, but again, I'm being respectful of time. But here's the question. I want to tie this together. What do we know about Juneteenth? Now I know Juneteenth just passed. I know that, but I'm still going to ask the question. What do I know about Juneteenth? Because watch this. This going to upset some people, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Some of y'all going to say, "Ouch." Okay, so this General Gordon Granger leads troops into Galveston, Texas, on June 19th, 1865. So from 1863, the end of the Civil War, until General Granger, two and a half years later, informs the the enslaved population, you're free and you've been free. And then it spreads through Texas, right? And now nationally, you know, politics got involved and it became recognized as a national holiday, right? And I'll leave it there. It was a Texas holiday forever since 1866, the year after. But then it became a national. But here's the thing, y'all. Emancipation Proclamation did not abolish slavery. And I want to be clear there. The Emancipation Proclamation, you know, it declared freedom of Black people, but slavery still existed. It did not abolish it. The 13th Amendment of December 6, 1865 abolished enslavement. But here's the thing. States had to ratify it. My home state of New Jersey didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 1866. Delaware didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 1901. So we're talking resistance now. It was still abolished because of the 13th Amendment, but you still had states who said, but we still want it. Kentucky didn't abolish didn't ratify. I hope I didn't use the word abolish on these. If I did, let me start over. New Jersey didn't ratify. That's the word I should have been saying. Didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 1866, so a year later. Delaware didn't ratify it until 1901. But watch this. Put your seatbelts on for this one because this might shock somebody. Kentucky didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 1976, the bicentennial. But I said, put on your seatbelts for Kentucky. For Mississippi, strap them tight. Mississippi didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 1995 and didn't certify it until 2013. Somebody said he can't be serious. Google it. Chat GPT it. Mississippi didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 1995, but it didn't certify it until 2013. And you want me to drive down the street with flags hanging from my window? Now let's have this conversation. Let's go. And by the way, that what I just read about those ratifications, that was under the question, what do I know about the 13th Amendment? I forgot to put that on. So what do I know about the 13th Amendment? And what I'm asking you to know is that that's what abolished slavery, not the Emancipation Proclamation, right? But I'm also telling you about those 4 states that ratified late, right? I just want you to know that. But what I'm bigger picture saying to you, and I'm not telling you how, not in this form, I do that in another form, but your children, because those of you that watch this platform, we talk leadership for the past 322 consecutive Saturdays. Here, I'm not talking leadership, but I am saying these conversations need to happen under your leadership. You got Black children and subsequently Black adults walking around this country oblivious to the things I've talked about for the past 2 hours. I'm going to say it again. You got Black children walking around America who have become Black adults who are absolutely oblivious to everything I've said over the past 2 hours. And I'm not faulting them. I mean, I do wish that folks would pick up a book and read, but if your initial education is not providing you with the information you need, and them founding fathers are propped up as heroes, but no one said like okay, so it's George Washington, our first president, general in the Revolutionary War. But did we talk about the 300 slaves that he owned? I mean, let's have the full conversation. Did we talk about the human beings kidnapped from Africa that he owned? We can't shy away from that. Don't tell me nothing about we don't believe in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, because we don't want to hurt the feelings of the non-Black children in the classroom. No, they need to know too. We just make sure that we present it in a way that is palatable for everybody. That's all. That's all. It's doable. I did it. I mean, of course, my school was Black, but I still needed my kids. I didn't want to create an inferiority complex in my kids, so I still had to be careful of how I presented it. Well, they're walking around looking at white people as the almighty. I'll never be like them. They strong. Nah, I had them kids feeling like they can accomplish anything they set their sights on accomplishing. So it's being careful. Let's go, y'all. Number 9. What do I know about the Black codes? What I know about the Black codes. I want to read this one because I just want to see certain ones. I just go off the dome. Others I want to make sure that I don't like misquote myself or say things fast and I needed to be a little bit more thorough. Black codes were restrictive laws passed by Southern states in 1865 to 1866 to limit the freedom of newly emancipated African Americans. Their primary goal was to force Black Americans back into agricultural labor and maintain a segregated, white-dominated society, essentially recreating the economic subjugation of slavery, right? And then they came in these 5 forms. First, vagrancy laws. Any Black person who was unemployed or without permanent residence could be arrested, heavily fined, and auctioned off to white planters to work off the debt. So that's vagrancy laws. These are Black codes. Secondly, labor contracts. African Americans were required to sign strict annual labor contracts. We're talking about post-slavery now. African Americans required to sign strict labor contracts. Quitting early resulted in forfeited wages, arrest, and forced labor. Right? So we're talking about post-slavery, but it's still slavery. Number 3, apprentice laws. Orphans or children whose parents could not support them were forced into unpaid apprenticeships, often with their former enslavers. I want to read that again because let that one sink in. Orphans or children whose parents could not support them. Now that's a lot. That's a whole lot. Who could not support them were forced into unpaid apprenticeships, often with their former slavers. So again, these Black codes were laws, y'all. Here's another one. Civil disenfranchisement. Black Americans were largely denied the right to vote, serve on juries, bear arms, or testify in court against white individuals. Read it again. Civil disenfranchisement. Black Americans were largely denied the right to vote, serve on juries, bear arms, or testify in court against white individuals. That's after slavery. So even though it's post-slavery, still had no rights that the white man was bound to respect. Here's another one. Occupational restrictions. Certain states banned Black individuals from owning certain properties or pursuing trades outside of farming and domestic service unless they paid high taxes. So that's just a little something of the Black codes. Because so during enslavement, you had the slave codes, and then after enslavement, you had the Black codes, right? So that was 1865, 1866, right? And I'm gonna get to Reconstruction as well. So just bear with me. Number 10. We getting there, y'all. Hang in there. Hang with your brother. You got all day to eat that barbecue, right? Number 10. What do I know about the 14th Amendment? 1868. Let me ask that question, like literally. Hey, fam, what you know about the 14th Amendment, right? There's a lot to it. I just put a little summary here. Overturned The 14th Amendment overturned the 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court decision. Let's stop it right there. So that's 1868. So think about what I just read in terms of you not being able to, black people not being able to testify against a white person, right? That was 1865, 1866. So 1868 comes the 14th Amendment, overturned the 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court decision by defining birthright citizenship. Y'all heard that language in the news lately? Let me read that again. Overturned the 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court decision by defining birthright citizenship. Let me stop right there for a minute, because what I know, I've been watching news. I was home, so I would turn on certain stations from time to time, and Dred Scott's name kept coming up. It kept coming up, right? So because of birthright citizenship around immigration, right, under this current administration, who I'll leave nameless. So Dred Scott's name kept coming up in the conversations of the various panels because the 14th Amendment is related to birthright citizenship, and the 14th Amendment is what overturned the Dred Scott decision of the Supreme Court, right? So it is that. So my hope is that somebody on this call right now that I wasn't familiar, like let's say somebody, I wasn't really familiar with Dred Scott, and then I heard what I was keeping up with the birthright citizenship and what happened this week in the Supreme Court. I was hearing that, but I guess I didn't make the connection between birthright citizenship in 2026 and the Supreme Court decision of 1857 Dred Scott. There's a direct relationship, y'all. 14th Amendment, Dred Scott, birthright citizenship, 2026, and the obsession of this administration, right? I'm not going to get political on here with contemporary stuff, but I want to connect the dots for you, right? That's why, again, the 14th Amendment was created because of the Dred Scott decision, right? Created because of black people. So you can't separate that. So now to make reference to the 14th Amendment, you got to make sure you're talking black people, right? You got to make sure you're talking black people. So hopefully if somebody didn't have the dots connected, hopefully you've just connected them, right? So the 14th Amendment establishes that anyone born or naturalized on U.S. soil is a U.S. citizen and a citizen of the state in which they reside. So we got somebody in the White House that was upset about that decision last week. But I just want you to connect the dots. It goes back to that black brother, Dred Scott. And I got it. A lot of people talk about Dred Scott in isolation, but you got to talk about Dred Scott and his wife, Harry, right? Because they were a couple. She outlived him by a long way. I think she lived to be 90 something, right? He died in 1858. So what do I know about the 14th Amendment would be coupled. We said, what do I know about the 13th? Now we said the 14th. So naturally we go to the 15th. What do I know about the 15th Amendment? There's a lot to be said there, but essentially, when we talk about the 15th Amendment, we're talking voting rights. And by the way, I'm going up to 16, y'all, so I'm almost there. We're talking voting rights. But listen, obviously, unless you've been sleeping under a rock for a little while, obviously, that 15th Amendment, that meant we had the right to vote, black people. But if you've been keeping up over the years, right, beyond Reconstruction, we didn't have the right to vote. All sorts of impediments, poll tax, and making all sorts of crazy predictions, a number of beans in a jar. My grandmother actually lived that. That's like, so when we talk about poll tax and being able to guess the number of jelly beans in a jar, my grandmother lived that experience, right? So we're not talking about like ancient history. Oh, that was so long ago. No, my grandmother that I lived with in the same house lived that experience. Poll tax, counting jelly beans in a bar, but in a jar. But you weren't. What do I keep saying bar? There must be something about that, right? But here's the thing: you couldn't like take them out and count them. You have to predict it. And if you didn't know the number, then they say go home. You ain't voting. But that was in the, that was in the 60s, y'all. That's in the 56. That's in so after Reconstruction of 1877, that's all the way through. And you want me to you want me to have a sign out front that says America 250 freedom? Come on, man. I can't. Because I know too much. That's like Jaylen Brown of the Philadelphia 76ers, formerly of the Boston Celtics. They say he had a disease. He was too smart. He wanted to be the smartest one in the room. That's my favorite player in the whole NBA now. It used to be other people. It's Jaylen Brown, right? And I have a feeling I'm gonna meet him in Philadelphia, but I'm not gonna put in November. But I'm not gonna put that out because the person that could make that happen, he would probably get mad at me for doing that. So I'm just going to like leave it right there. But I suspect I'm gonna meet this young man in November of this year. But I'm gonna leave that alone. I'll let you know about it later, right? So, but I strongly suspect that it's gonna happen. Anyway, let's get back to where we were. The 15th Amendment. That was voting rights, y'all. That's why I go to that Edmund Pettus Bridge all the time, man. I don't know how many times I walked the span of that bridge, right? And just recognizing and acknowledging that 600 plus marchers led by Congressman John Lewis and Reverend Hosea Williams, not to forget that the local activist Amelia Boynton was on that bridge. I walk that bridge, man. I get emotional when I'm on that bridge every time, right? So because they marched for the right to vote. They marched for the right to vote. They knew they were going to get beat down on the other side of that bridge by the Alabama State Troopers and the Selma Police Force. They knew it, but they did it anyway. And then ultimately they marched on March 21st, 1965, and made that 4-day march to Montgomery. And then ultimately the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. But why, which has been grossly disassembled, as you know, as I hope you know. But why does a Voting Rights Act have to be passed in 1865 when 100 years ago, 95 years ago, in 1870, the 15th Amendment took care of that? See, nah, I ain't gonna have no flags today. It's people in my neighborhood with flags. And I said, every time I look at them, I say, do your flags. I ain't mad at you. Do your flags. But my mind is saying, but do you know the history? Do you know? I got one neighbor got 2 flags. But my mind is saying, but do you know the history? Right? Would if you knew the history the way I know it, would you still be flying them flags like that? Them 13 stripes, man, they represent some stuff, man. They represent some stuff. All this what we've been talking about, that's coming out of them 13 stripes, man. Again, I'm not anti-American. I'm American. You can't take that from me, because my ancestors' blood is deeply entrenched in that ground. So you can't take that from me. I can't even deny America, because I'm a descendant of the people whose blood is deep into the soil, right? In fact, it's so deep into the soil, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I know Melissa is on here, Dr. Melissa Jones Chunu. They built over the blood. They built the whole city over the blood. There are 300 people unaccounted for. Now, I'm not getting into Tulsa here. That's after, I'm only going to 1896. That's 1921. But there are 300 unaccounted for people who died in the Tulsa massacre, race massacre. Not riot. Riot implies two sides. Massacre. Right? So that blood is underneath. They built on top of that. Just like New York City. You go downtown by the World Trade Center, the African burial ground. Some of y'all wouldn't know this about New York. They got the African, see, like, let me get into it, y'all. Y'all still here. I see the numbers. Listen, New Yorkers travel from downtown to uptown in terms of where they live. So people know about Harlem. They know it's uptown. Take the subway uptown, or drive over the George Washington Bridge and then drive to Harlem through the Bronx. But what everyone doesn't know, but Black people started downtown. You know that word Wall Street? Do you know where that comes from? They sold Black people behind a wall. Oh, somebody probably said, "Oh my God, I didn't know that." Yeah, it was a wall. They sold Black people behind the wall, and hence Wall Street. Stock market. Somebody said, man, Melissa Jones Jr. said, "Dirty secret." That's the one from Tulsa. Right? Yeah. So now Blacks kept migrating. They migrated toward uptown. So they kept migrating. So the Village. So you go to the Village in New York City, right? Christopher Street and all that. That's all Black at one point. Then they pushed them out of there. They moving uptown. They right there and what's 34th Street called? Whatever that's called. I can't think of it right now. But that 34th Street area. Them Black folks live there, like where Madison Square Garden is. That's a Black community. Right? Then they got pushed out of there. They moved further up. Now they get to Central Park. You been to Central Park? That big, I was going to say that big, that big park. Y'all know Central Park? That big old park? That's the way you say it. Big. All right. That whole park was a Black neighborhood. That whole park. Black folks lived there. Then they pushed them out of there, up into Harlem. Now, right now, there's something called gentrification, and they getting pushed out of Harlem. Some people go to Harlem and they say, "Oh, my wife just told me Herald Square." So that 34th Street area where Madison Square Garden is, 7th Avenue, 8th Avenue, 34th Street, that was a Black community. They got pushed up out of there. So they kept getting pushed more and more uptown to Harlem. And now gentrification, some parts of Harlem are unrecognizable. 125th Street. It's so much corporations there. It's not what it used to be. Right? So I'm saying, I said all that. I'm way off topic, y'all. Forgive me. But I ain't never gone this long before. No, yes, I have. I've done 3 hours before. Listen. So let's go back. The African burial ground, where the World Trade Center is, that's all cemetery. That was all cemetery because that's where Black people lived in New York City. They ain't live uptown. They ain't live in no Harlem. They live downtown. So when they got so now they had their own cemetery, the African burial ground. And you even had, sometimes you like these are not things that's like at the top of my head all the time, but when you talk things through, things come out, right? So I haven't talked about this in a while. So now when I say woo, why? Let me tell you why. Because Black people have fought in the Revolutionary War from New York. Well, they were Black people buried in the African burial ground in uniform. Because they dug up some of those graves later. They were still in their army uniform, skeletons in their army uniform. And you want me to put a America 250 freedom sign outside of my house or something? You want me to go to a UFC fight on the White House grounds? Are you kidding me? With what I know? And I don't know everything. I ain't Dr. Greg Carr from Howard University. I don't know it all. I just know my little something, something, right? I need to get him on here one day. So I'm saying to you, buried in their uniform, New York City, African burial grounds. You can go there and visit. They have an exhibit now. You had activists going back during the years in the 80s, such as Abuba Dika, Sonny Carson, activists, one of the top activists in New York City, Alambe Brath and others, Omar Wally Clay and others, and they fought to have this thing as a place that people could go and visit, and it became this place, the African burial grounds, that you can go and you can learn. It's a museum now. You can go there. All right. Enough said. That 15th Amendment brought a lot out of me. Let's go to number 12. I'm almost done, y'all. I'm almost done. Hope I don't lose no clients today, but if I do, I understand. You see, I'm laughing because I don't care no more. You know what I'm saying? I have to be me. At the end of the day, I gotta go here, y'all. If I can't talk about this publicly, then who am I? Who am I? All right, let's go. Let's go. Number 12. Did I put it up? Yeah. What do I know about the reason for the establishment of HBCUs? I'm still on my topic, America's 250, through the lens of a Black urban educator. Who's a Black urban educator? Me. Right? So let's go. Let's go. I see y'all out here too, man. I just didn't want to do shout outs on here because I want this video to like be worthwhile to somebody later. But I see y'all, man. I see you. Listen, y'all. What do I know about the reason for the establishment of HBCUs? Let me give you the short answer first. Because see, 1865, the end of the Civil War. I still didn't get the Reconstruction, but I promise you I will. I want to build my way to it. So you got a population of Black people who had never been to school before. They didn't have education. You know, whatever they got as far as learning how to read and learning how to read a newspaper, that type of thing. Okay, we got that. But the bottom line is we got to go to school, whether it be colleges, universities, or even grade school, right? Or adult school, whatever. So I asked the question, what do I know about the reason for the establishment of HBCUs? Because Black people were not getting into traditionally white schools, right? Not getting into them. What's some initials again, Ski? PTI? PWI. What's that stand for? What's that piece? Predominantly. Yeah, I don't use that language. I just say white schools, you know, but PWI, predominantly white schools. Huh? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Institutions, predominantly white institutions, right? So they're not getting to those schools. and quiet as kept, they still ain't getting to a lot of them schools, right? So there had to be schools for Black people. So the first one, I just wanted to write this, 1837, Cheney University now, of Pennsylvania, founded in Cheney, Pennsylvania, as the African Institute. That was the original name. Then these are the first four. University of District of Columbia, established in Washington, D.C. as the normal school for colored girls. It was the city's only school providing education beyond elementary level for Black youth. Then you had Lincoln University of Pennsylvania, 1854, located in Lincoln, Pennsylvania. It was originally founded as the Ashmun Institute. It was the first institution in the country to grant college degrees to Black students. And then you have Wilberforce University, 1856, located in Wilberforce, Ohio. It is the first HBCU to be owned and operated by African Americans, right? Again, the first one to be owned and operated by African Americans, having been founded through a partnership between the Methodist Episcopal Church and the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So my purpose in that question was simply to give you that quick history of those first four, but also just to remind someone that needs reminder. Maybe there's some young people listening that what we got? What I see here? Yeah. I see you there, Yolanda. My wife on here talking to me, right? So, but yeah, Yeah, I want you to know that those first four existed and when they were 1857, 1851, 1854, 1856, right? So going back that far, if you don't have those HBCUs, and the beauty is it's still applicable today, right? One of my biggest regrets in life is that I didn't attend one, but two of my three children did, Hampton and Claflin in South Carolina. So I went vicariously through them, right? So but here's the thing. Once again, without these schools, but let's go deeper with that. I want to go deeper, but let me put the question up here for you. I want to go a little bit deeper. So my question to you as we go deeper with the whole idea of HBCUs and education, what do I know about the reason for the Freedmen's Bureau in the Freedmen's schools? This is important, y'all. What do I know about the reason for the Freedmen's Bureau in Freedmen's schools? Right? So first let's talk about the Freedmen's Bureau, right? So you got Civil War, at the end of the Civil War. So this was a temporary federal agency established by Congress in 1865. Its primary mission, right? Primary mission was to help millions of formerly enslaved Black Americans to navigate the transition to freedom and rebuild lives after the Civil War, right? So how do you free a people who know nothing about freedom? We talking generation after generation after generation, and now this last generation, all right, you're free. Okay, now what? You somewhere in the deep South, or even up South, right? And now, like, jobs gonna be available, school gonna be available, anything gonna be available. Am I safe? Obviously not. So what do I do? So hence the Freedmen's Bureau, temporary federal agency to assist in the process of transitioning the lives of the enslaved after the Civil War. So key operations and achievements of the Freedmen's Bureau were basic needs, distributed millions of food rations, clothing, and medical supplies to destitute refugees, right? Because as a slave, you're being provided not adequate food, but you're being provided enough food to survive so you can slave in them fields, right? But now where you gonna get your food from? It ain't like you got money in your pocket, right? So you got the Freedmen's Bureau to provide basic needs, again, distributed millions of food rations, clothing, medical supplies to destitute refugees. But then education, partnered with philanthropic organizations to build thousands of schools and several universities for newly freed people, right? Thousands of schools. Labor and law supervised labor contracts between Black laborers and white landowners to ensure fair pay and help formerly enslaved people to legalize their marriages and locate separated family members, right? So again, the Freedmen's Bureau came at a time to assist them with, in this case, supervising contracts so that they're paid adequately, and we know that they probably were not, and white landowners to ensure fair pay, help formerly enslaved people legalize their marriages and locate separated family members. So you got family members sold, family members who ran away, right? So you got all that, and that, just reuniting with people, your loved ones, people in your family. And then land, yeah, I'm with you, Marcus. I kind of, you've heard me flirt with this doctorate degree, and the one I was looking at was Virginia State. And if I pursue this doctorate, it will certainly be at an HBCU. Even though it's virtual, it will still be an HBCU. So one of the reasons I want the doctorate is not that I want the doctorate, not that I need the doctorate. I just want to be able to say that I got a degree from an HBCU, right? So enough there. Land, temporarily managed, abandoned, or confiscated Confederate land. Let me say that again. We're talking about them Freedmen's Bureaus. Temporarily managed, abandoned, or confiscated Confederate land initially intended to lease or sell it to formerly enslaved people. Because you got Confederate land in the South that was abandoned or confiscated from them, right? So now to get Black people housed, right? Because they needed to be able to live. They didn't have the slave owner anymore, except for those who because they couldn't survive, slave owners brought them back in and sharecropped them, right? So But here's some of the challenge. I'm almost done too, y'all. I can see number 16 on my page. Challenges and dissolution. Despite its groundbreaking bureau, right? We're talking about the Freedmen's Bureau. Here's some of the challenges. It was severely underfunded. It was heavily understaffed. It operated, this is really heavy. It operated in a climate of intense hostility from white Southerners, right? So you got white Southerners down there that wanted slavery to continue. They never envisioned us. They, so them white Southerners that fought against the Union, that wanted to sustain slavery, they never saw me being on here talking to y'all about leadership every Saturday. Their intent was to see me enslaved forever. That's why you can't, you can't be around me with a Confederate flag and think I'm gonna be good with that. Right? You can't be around me with a Confederate flag and think I'm gonna be good with that, because I'm not. Because I know what that represents. I know what it symbolizes. It symbolizes the sustaining of enslavement. Right? So I'm never gonna be good with that flag. When I see that flag, I cringe, my blood boils. I typically want to confront my wife. She had to get me because I was gonna confront one and do a Facebook Live one day, and my wife was like, "Don't ever do that." Right? She had to pull me to the side, man. She's all mad at me one day. Because I said, yo, I was going to roll up on this. I was going to do a Facebook Live and have them explain to me the need, why they have a need for this bumper sticker with this Confederate flag. And I didn't do it. But when I told her when I got home, I was on a speaking trip. She's all in my face, man. So I haven't done it, but I want to, but maybe the right circumstances will come up, and I'll be able to do it. But anyway, I said severely underfunded, heavily understaffed, operated in a climate of intense hostility from white Southerners. Political pressure and waning Northern will eventually led Congress to dismantle the agency in 1872. Right? So that's during Reconstruction. Let me say it again. Political pressure and waning Northern will eventually led Congress to dismantle the agency in 1872. So universities established by the Freedmen's Bureau, so established or supported directly by the Freedmen's Bureau, included Howard University, Clark Atlanta when it was Atlanta University, Morehouse, Shaw, and Fisk. Right? But let's look at the Freedmen's schools. In fact, let me put it up here. Here we go. What do I know about the intricacies of Reconstruction? No, that's not the right one. Where we at? Oh, I see. Keep that up, but I'm not addressing it yet. I had Freedmen's schools under Freedmen's Bureau. So Freedmen's schools, I didn't have it as a separate question. Educational institutions established during and shortly after the Civil War to educate formerly enslaved African Americans, and freedmen and their children. Right. So you had a lot of schools popping up, and they were established by or supported by the Freedmen's Bureau, and these were Freedmen's schools. All right. I got 3 more to go in this short. Number 14. What do I know about the intricacies of Reconstruction? Reconstruction, W.E.B. Du Bois, and that's another book that's in this house, but it's not like within arm's reach, but it's like a thick one. It's green, and that's a whole lifetime read, because you ain't gonna read all that and say, okay, I got it all. No. But during Reconstruction, that was a different time for Black people on the heels of enslavement, the emancipation, and the ending of the Civil War, because now you had 16 Black members of Congress, like immediately. 14 were representatives and 2 were senators. The senators were Hiram Revels of Mississippi and Blanche Bruce of Mississippi. 1870 for Revels and 1875 for Bruce. They were both in the Senate. Right. So when we talk about, the first senators and all that kind of stuff, they're talking about in the modern era. But you got to go back to Reconstruction, and you had Hiram Revels, that's Hiram, and Blanche Bruce, both of Mississippi, 1870, 1875, respectively. But then you had a Black governor who was temporary. He was acting, PBS Pinchback of Louisiana, of 1871 through December 1871 through January 1872. So it was a short reign, but he was acting governor, PBS pinchback. So, you know, imagine that Louisiana slave state, but soon after the ending of slavery, the abolishment of slavery, here you got a black governor already, right? But then something happened, which is number 15. I think on number 15 and 16, which are the last ones. I'm gonna kind of take my time on them because I want to make sure I get them right, because, you know, I want this to be a record, so to speak, that people go back to and get some information, that type of thing. So let me make sure I get this right. What do I know about the Compromise of 1877? You know, I love when people like to play games on the difference between Republican and Democrat. And sometimes people, when they want to make an argument about the Democratic Party, they'll say, yeah, well, the Democrats were the slaveholders and, you know, all this kind of thing, right? And I always want to bring to their attention that the parties kind of switched over time, particularly during Reconstruction, but in all, what's the word I'm looking for? But in totality, with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? So it was a complete shift based on his policies, right? So you had Rutherford B. Hayes, a Republican, winning the electoral college in 18 man, I didn't write the year down. 1876. All right, 1876. I wrote it down. So he wins the electoral college, but he runs against Samuel Tilden, who won the popular vote by 250,000 votes, right? 250,000 lead. So now you got these disputed states. These are the only Republican states. And again, this is not the Republican Party we know today. This is the old Republican Party. And you got South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana, who were the disputed states because of voter intimidation and bribes. So we're talking about black people, we're talking about white people, we're talking about people who are intimidated about voting for Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican, right, who won the electoral vote but lost the popular vote. So there was a compromise, and the compromise is in the South, the election won't be blocked, and will respect the civil and political rights of black people if the federal troops are removed, because you have federal troops in the South to protect black people. So the compromise was to remove the federal troops, and the civil and political rights of black people will be respected, and the election won't be blocked. So hence Rutherford B. Hayes wins this election. And then here comes Reconstruction. But here's the story. Black people were not protected, right? As a result, they weren't protected at all. And hence Reconstruction came to an end, right? It comes to an end. So again, Reconstruction begins 1865. And hence you got black people in office. It ends in 1877 with that election in 1876, right? And now what we knew as far as those 12 years, it's over. So now if we fast forward to the final question, which brings it full circle, you had a young man who jumped on a train. What do I know about Plessy versus Ferguson? Young man, Homer Plessy, he jumps on a train and he goes to the whites only car. Now he's very light, as people would say, fair skin. I don't typically use that language, but he's very light. And you know, back in them days, they give you these fractions. So they say he was 1/7 black, right? And whatever that means, you know, I don't use that language because it sounds pretty absurd and ridiculous. But they say he was 1/7 black. So he went on. He sat in the whites only car. He wouldn't get up and go to the black car, the blacks car. So he was arrested, and it became a court case, and it made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, and it upheld. So they upheld the Constitution. So this case upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation under the separate but equal doctrine in 1896 landmark Supreme Court decision, which made racial segregation legal for all public accommodations for 58 years until Brown versus Board of Education. I'm not getting into any of that. I'm just going up to 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson. But this is to say this, like me, this is just me wondering out loud. You got this Plessy versus Ferguson case. It said as long as the races were separate but equal. But we know that they were not separate but equal. They were separate but unequal. But as long as they were separate but equal, it was clear as day. As long as you had eyes to see, it was not equal, right? So the case made racial segregation legal for all public accommodations for the next 58 years. Here's what I'm always thinking out loud. Then what are we talking about with the 14th and 15th Amendment? If the Supreme Court can pass a law that separated us and put us essentially back in bondage. It wasn't slavery, but it was very, very difficult times living under those circumstances. So again, as I wrap this up, y'all, I'm thinking about today, July 4th, 2026. But I'm also thinking about July 4th, 1776, and everything that transpired to today, July 4th, 2026. There's so much there. But I'm an educator, y'all. I'm getting ready to shut it down too, y'all. I'm getting ready to shut it down. I ain't gonna ask you to stay here no longer. I took the questions off. Let me just close it down. I'm a black man, y'all. That's what I am. I'm an African American. But even though I'm black and African American, doesn't mean that I'm the only one that should know this history. If you're white American, if you're Latino American, you Chinese American, you Asian American, you're whatever, because I can go on and that'll take us all, right? I can go on and on. But I shouldn't be the only one that knows this story. When I say I mean the collective I, black people. No, we collectively should know the story. There shouldn't be black children walking around out here and have no clue of the past outside of we were slaves. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. fought for civil rights and Malcolm was a bad dude, right? No, it's so much more. It's so much more. Like these 10 pages doesn't capture everything, y'all. I just gave you a synopsis, but I wanted to do it on July 4th, right? But I just gave you a synopsis. And I hope it was beneficial to you. In fact, give me them emojis if it was, right? I don't mean I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I just need data. I need feedback. If today was good to you, give me some emojis, y'all. Let me know, or just tell me, right? If today was beneficial. We 2.5 hours. No, we almost 3 hours, right? That's all. It's all good. Those of you that came on late today, do me a favor. Matter of fact, maybe y'all shouldn't give me emojis because I don't want y'all to get in trouble with your jobs, right? So, so I don't know. Y'all, I'll leave that up to you. But listen, y'all, if you came on late, I really want you to watch the monologue. It was long. It wasn't my normal, 5 minutes, whatever they are. Some of y'all say it ain't 5 minutes, they longer than that. But it wasn't my normal monologue because I took my time. But I needed the monologue to make the session make sense. I really need you to watch the monologue. Please go back and watch the monologue, right? That's important. But as I close, y'all, I'm not going anywhere no time soon. I'm going to be reading this Peculiar Institution, the Peculiar Institution by Kenneth Stamp. If you don't have this book, please get it. But I'm gonna be reading this for a while. I don't have no interest in no barbecues right now. I'm sure I'll stop by at some point, but I got this. Hey, Michael, hey, Mike Dixon, I got you on my list of my short list. I'll be in touch with you soon. I'm also going to be reading more of this today, right? What to the Slave is Your 4th of July. And then I want to just recommend this book. If you don't have this, Before the Mayflower, History of Black America by the great late Lerone Bennett Jr., get this book. I could throw a bunch of books at you. I don't want to just throw all the books at you and all that. If there's somebody out here and you just need to get back where you were, it's a lot of contemporary books. I'm an old school guy. I'll be 66 in October, so I'm old school. I'm not new school. I know the new stuff, Black AF, right? I know all that stuff is out there. I'm sure it's great stuff, but I'm old school, right? And this is probably the best old school. This one, along with From Slavery to Freedom. Man, if I get that book down, I'm gonna pull down all these. I'm gonna knock stuff down. So let me not. But From Slavery to Freedom by John Hope Franklin, and this one, Before the Mayflower, by A History of Black America by Lerone Bennett Jr. So get the two of them. Get the Miseducation of the Negro. That's important. I keep that close by. So get this, The Miseducation of the Negro. It won't look like this, but it'll be the same title, and the print will literally look the same, right? And then this is a 5-volume set. You can get it, but you're gonna pay a little for it. It's 5 volumes, right? Life and Writings of Frederick Douglass. And the fonts are small, and it's a thick book. So it's a lot there, right? And then get this, The Peculiar Institution, Slavery in the Antebellum South. Other than that, y'all, I think I covered all I need to cover, all I wanted to cover. Let me just close out the way I always close out by saying, those of you that want to, don't forget my Fantastic Four. Every Saturday morning, Sean Hurt, 10 o'clock. Followed by, these are all Facebook Live and YouTube. Followed by Create and Educate with Dr. Sheikah Houston, Dr. Tammy Taylor. Appreciate you, Mom. That's my mother on Facebook, y'all, Dolores Cushney. She said, my mother is smiling so proud. That's my grandmother. So Create and Educate with Dr. Sheikah Houston and Dr. Tammy Taylor at 10:30. Then us, AP New Principals Academy at 11 o'clock. And then we're Super Saturday, and then we call ourselves Fantastic Four when we include the Sunday edition PGP podcast with Josh Tovar and Dr. Madi Moreno, right? That's 6 o'clock Eastern time, 5 Central. Make sure you get your hands on these as well, because we still got a lead. So I got all my books, but these are the two that really coincide with this platform, right? So what is my value instructionally to the teacher that supervise and the assistant principal 50? Make sure that you get yourself both copies, because we'll be back talking leadership. We were talking leadership today, y'all. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm saying, I'm not telling you how to do it, because I didn't get into the politics of it, but I am saying somehow, some way, your kids your students, your scholars have to know, they got to know this. They got to know this. How are we going to call them? How are we going to say that we properly educating kids, but they don't know this? Hang on. Hey, Ralph, you're talking about my book, aren't you? I appreciate you, Ralph. I appreciate you. Hey, listen, I'm not going to get into the politics of that. Maybe a different session I will. I'll bring on some other scholars that also did what I did and was able to make this happen so that we got to the real information, that we were properly educating kids. So I'm not going to do that now and be reckless and careless and negligent in a short period of time. But I'm saying that this was still leadership. Is saying, your students, they got to know the American story. Like let's say, I don't think there's anybody on here that got mad at me. Like I don't think so, because I wasn't like attacking races and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm just giving you facts, right? So, but let's say there was someone on here hypothetically, and they said, man, I've been down with Kafele like for years, like 30 years I've been with this dude, right? But now I ain't with him no more. Right, I'm not with him no more after what he did today. Then I would say goodbye first, right? Nice having you for the time I had you, but more importantly, because I'm being facetious on that, but more importantly, I would say you mad at me, you mad at the wrong person. Your anger shouldn't be with me. Your anger should be with America, because what I just shared with you was the part of the American story that's missing from the pages. Let me say that again. I know I'm going over y'all. Y'all hang with me for a minute, man. Let me say that again. If somebody that didn't come on the thread, because that would be most, that just sat back and kind of watch, and they say, man, I've been down with this dude for so long, man. I've been reading all his books, I've been watching his videos, I've been watching him speak. But after today, I ain't with this dude no more. Let me tell you something. Your anger would be with the wrong person. I don't think you're here. I'm being hypothetical. Your anger would be with the wrong person. Your anger's not with me. What I shared with you was another aspect of the American story that didn't make its way into your curriculum, your textbooks, and your teachers' pre-service training to become a teacher, let alone their schooling before they became university students. That's who you should be angry with. In fact, I say that's your enemy. Your enemy is whomever deprived you of this information that is readily available. I mean, you can go to Chat GPT and it will break this stuff down. They're not hiding it for some reason. You know, you would think Chat GPT will hold back. No, they giving it to everybody. They giving it to you. All you gotta do is go there. Like, who was Dred Scott? Right? You know, you ask these questions. Right? How many slaves did George Washington own? Why didn't he free them? Ask these questions. It's gonna tell you. Right? You just have to have the audacity to ask the questions. See, some of us don't want to ask the questions because we don't want to know. We don't want to know this stuff. We just want to know about some apple pies and hot dogs, whatever. However that mess goes. I don't keep up with that stuff. So I don't quote it very well because it's not my thing. Right? So I'm saying, no, there's another story. See, remember, when you see these black folks around America and different parts of the world, just don't forget they are descendants of this story I just shared. That's who they are. But I got to tell you something else about that. This, you know, now I'm off the dome. I ain't with my notes right now. Slavery. In America, 1619 to 1865. I want y'all to understand something. That's a long time. There has never been any therapy for that period of enslavement for a population of people. See, those first freely enslaved, free captives from enslavement. Like I said to you, Freedmen's Bureau, education, you know, schools, sharecropping, all that kind of stuff. So means of survival, but there was no therapy. So now generation after generation is passing down what was already received. Right. So there was never like a pause, so to speak, because you know that's slang nowadays. There was never that pause to say, we need to bring them back. Right. Like they need like it's a large percentage that need therapy from that experience. Because so that person that says, oh, that was so long ago, why are we still dwelling on that? Because as a people, including me, we're still impacted by it. I'm still impacted by that. I feel this stuff all the time, every day. I just don't talk about it. We all do. We're impacted by that period that I just shared with you from 1619 to 1865 to 1896, and then that whole period up until Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 and on. We're all impacted by that because there's never been anything therapeutical for us through it. So don't talk about like that's in the past. Nah, it's still in the present. It just looks different. It's still in the present, right? So I'm saying to you, read, y'all. Study. Reading, matter of fact, forget read. Read, yes. But more importantly, study. Research. Know your stuff. You'll probably create enemies for yourself. That's okay. I created a bunch of them in the school system. A bunch of them. People can't relate to this. They can't relate. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard to relate, and not just from people of other races, particularly white people, but you could create enemies just in your own race when they don't know what you know. So now your circle gets tighter, or your circle, or you build a circle with people of like mind. Right? But it's something about a conscious black man that people struggle with. I understand that. Right? But that's okay. That's okay. Right? It's the American story, and your students, your staff have a right to know it, to understand it, to be exposed to it. Make it theirs so that they can own it. You know, I'm gonna stay on here for 5 more minutes because I want to make this 3 hours long. So 5 minutes, I'm out. So let me just freestyle while I'm on here. Somebody that's watching right now, because I came on at 11. I came on 11:01, so I'm going to 3:01, right? Hey, listen, y'all. Somebody on here, you want to do some of the things I did. You want to put yourself in position to write that curriculum. You want to put yourself in position to teach your kids properly. This is why we're going to Zoom, right? In fact, I don't need the freestyle. I still got my closing announcements. This is why we're going to Zoom first Saturday, second hour. Every first Saturday, I'm solo. Second hour, we go on to Zoom. So how do you get the link? Glad you asked. Simply go to my AP New Principals Academy Facebook page. Please, 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 like James Brown said, please, please, please don't go to my regular Facebook page if you're on Facebook and put it in there, because it's going to get lost. Sometimes I get hundreds of inbox messages a day. It's going to get lost there. I don't get inbox messages on my AP New Principals Academy page. So therefore, the messages I get is the people that say, I want the link. So here's what you do. You go to AP New Principals Academy on Facebook and write either I'm in or I'm down. One or the other, that's all. And then give me your personal email address. Not your work email, because the filter might keep the link from going through. I'm gonna send you the link in late August. And then we're going to go live first hour. I'm going to be right on this platform, StreamYard. But the second hour, we're going to just hit that end button and switch right over to Zoom. And now we can engage with one another on whatever the topic was, right? Or if there's some topics that you just feel, look, Kafele, I want to talk about the topic, but I got some things pressing. And since I got you now live, I want to talk to you. Then we'll do that. But all of us are so smart. It ain't just me. It's y'all too. I learn from y'all. I'll be reading your comments, man. I'll be like, oh, I need to steal this, man. Right? Because y'all be dropping stuff, man. That's how we learn. We learn from each other. Right? So now it won't just be me. It'll be someone who will respond and we learn from one another. Now, let's say that this thing gets big and it's like 50 people on here, 100 people on here. Then I'm gonna break it up and I'm gonna go every week with that and with my guests. And I'm gonna say, all right, we go 1 hour, and then we take whatever the topic is with my guests over to Zoom, and then we'll break it up that way, right? And then I'm sure all the people ain't gonna be on every week, or maybe I assign you certain week, so certain cluster go week A, certain cluster go week B, C, and D. I'll figure that out. I'll figure that out once I see what the numbers are, right? And how, because I want this to be productive. Right. Someone asked me the other day. They said, someone that I highly respect. They said, Kafele, you gonna monetize that, right? I said, monetize. I said, no, I don't want no money for this. I said, because my money come from up there. see, like some of y'all, we drive to the bank, right? My bank up there in the clouds, baby. So that stuff be coming down. So I don't, like the things that a lot of my colleagues charge for. Because see, like a lot of things that I do, I know that I got colleagues that make thousands a day on things that I do. Not them stealing from me, but the things I do on here or other things I do, they monetize it. And they got all these people in the room and they making all this money. And I say, I ain't doing that, man. So like doing something like, so people ask, you'll monetize this? No, I ain't monetizing nothing, man. Except when y'all come to that Saturday, that academy in July 9 and 10, I got to make something, right? We don't make a lot. We got to pay the hotel and the food and all that kind of stuff, right? So, but everything else, let me keep my finger on it. My bank up there, y'all. Your bank this way, that way, that way. My bank this way. Some of y'all understand. I caught. I'm not going to tell y'all about this. I'll do this another time. But for those that were in the room, y'all would know. At ASCD, I caught that spirit, man. I caught that Holy Spirit, that Holy Ghost. Y'all understand. I caught that bad boy. I went off, man. I caught it. I couldn't control it. Those of you that understand, you understand how that works. And the crowd was like, it must have been like 95% black in my room. they understood. I had some other folks coming up to me, like hovering over me. You okay, sir? Nah, I'm fine. Just get away from me. Get away. That spirit took over, man. I told them, people, don't y'all post them. I know y'all filming me. Don't post them videos. Right. So all right, y'all, it's 2:00. I need one more minute. Listen, School Leadership Institute, you still got time to join me. You still got time, right? So July 9 and 10, go to principalkafele.com and scroll down and you'll see the link. NAESP, National Association of Secondary Elementary School Principals, July 14 in Orlando. Go to naesp.org. I'll be doing 2 big sessions. I'm bringing my A game. And then SREB, Southern Regional Educational Board, July 14. I'm bringing it, y'all. 2 sessions there too. Nashville, Tennessee. Come on and join me. I guess I don't know where we're gonna be. I don't know what place. I was getting ready to say the what do you call it, the Opryland, but I don't know if it's there or not. So I'm not going to say that. It's going to be in Nashville, right? And then subscribe to the AP New Principals Academy YouTube channel. We got 25,500 now, maybe 600. Visit me at principalkafele.com for additional resources. And then finally, your diet. Woo! Don't overdo it today. Matter of fact, don't even go. Read. Your exercise. Get on out. Nah, it's a heat wave. Go to the gym. I went to the gym for the past 3 days. I said, I ain't walking out there. Told my wife, I ain't walking out there. They be planning an early funeral for me, right? Too hot to be out there. So don't be Superman, Superwoman, and be out in 100 degrees trying to exercise. And then your virus precautions. Make sure you're taking care of yourselves, y'all. Other than that, y'all, I appreciate you rocking with me for 3 hours. Those of you that stayed on that long, those of you that came in later, go back and watch it. But make sure you watch that monologue, y'all. That's important. That monologue is important. It's important. It's important. Other than that, y'all have a great 4th, whatever that means to you. And then have a great week. I'll see you next week. I got this guest, Dr. Tanya Woolfolk. Man, I left the book over there. But she wrote, yeah, it's over there. But she wrote this dynamite book on Black youth and science. And I wrote the foreword. How about that? I wrote the foreword. She's published by Corwin Press. So we're going to go one-on-one next Saturday, right? So make sure you join us next Saturday. It's going to be a big one. Other than that, have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace. Peace. Thumbs up. Cock that fist back all the way. 1, 2, 3. Bam! I'll see y'all next Saturday at 11 o'clock. Not to mention the Fantastic Four. Make sure you join all of us.